and then as you walk past, you turn around. There's like a 99% disappointment rate outside of South Africa. At least in South Africa,
that's not true.
Even if she's got a mean face, right? She could have a nasty, mean face, right? But as you walk past you look around and you turn around, and then the happiness that just comes over you.
You might not be as well traveled as you think. Rwanda.
I'm not that well traveled. No.
Yeah, Rwanda. Oh, the ladies there. 7 women die of GBV every day.
Wow.
In South Africa.
Every day?
Every single day, 7 women. Now, let me surprise you some more. There are about 70 murders that happen in South Africa. How many are men? 55. Do you know how many men commit suicide? 23 per day. That eclipses gender-based violence. Now, gender-based violence, you know how to drop it? Don't try and get the men that are doing the crime. Try to work on their mental health. They're not sleeping with Thabo from down the road. No, they don't care about Thabo. Thabo can't even get girls. He's jerking off, and there's more Thabos than there will be Galstons.
Yeah, he's too poor to get AIDS.
He's too poor to get AIDS. Well, he's too poor to get laid. That's what I was going to say.
Well, it's got aid in it.
Hey, when you talk of identity play, I'm actually cousin yami eToslo. Manje mina wena yabona ngoba nasoyaluma bese bathi asithandazo. Ayisani senginesikam. But let us pray bese ngicisa.
Let us know if you do love Zake's Kitchen food and the menu.
There you are.
If you love the menu, spread word.
And there
everybody know out there.
So at the same time, baby. Amen. And esikhule sonke sithandaza emagadini. Angazi ayile ngistophe ku. Besithandaza kanjani? Mara mina still pray. Once in a while mara masenkinga. Ngithi ukuthi yazi.
Sure. Cut. Zake's Kitchen, overeats, father eats, Mr. D.
I just heard I said B. I said B.
Let us know if you do love Zake's Kitchen food and the menu.
All right, for those that are interested in advertising on NOTA Mondays, get in touch with NOTA. Go DM him on his Instagram. I think maybe they can find you at just Instagram.
Yeah, no, Instagram is...
Because other accounts are confusing. We're not sure if it's really you.
Sorry, yeah. No,
maybe Twitter as well?
No, Instagram, I didn't have to pay for the verification.
Okay.
Mark Zuckerberg thought I know. It is some guy boutique.
So La Vida Nota on Instagram.
On Instagram.
DM him directly.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with him directly. Let's have a conversation. Let's plug your business. Let's talk about your business. And then let's talk about how much you can afford to advertise on NOTA Mondays.
Yeah, take me out of the unemployment numbers. Yo. I never know how to do an intro. You know what I mean?
I can teach you.
Yeah, but it's NOTA Mondays on the Hustlers Corner. I'm fresh back from Zambia. Have you ever been to Zambia?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I was in Lusaka this weekend for the Art and Music Circle workshops with my homeboy, Butola Mabuto from Umjolo Music. They're like, he's the guy that found DJ Jaivani. I don't know if you know DJ Jaivani. He's like a podcast DJ. He's got a podcast mix that he has on Apple Podcasts, which is like one of the biggest mixes, and some of the biggest stars in Amapiano were all discovered there.
Word?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got his own label running now. He just signed a new artist called Cowboy, who's also been featured on many hits. I think one of the biggest hits of 2023 or 2024, it was released in 2023, Bayaz.
The craziest thing is you telling a guy who barely listens to Amapiano. So, and even the artist,
Okay.
So you throwing me off. We can
Yeah.
talk about the business because I'm about the business. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that don't know what the business is, this is the best to ever do it. GALSTON Anthony, my homie. I think I've done
Yep.
like 6 podcasts
Yep. Some
podcasts
unreleased.
with you,
Yeah, some unreleased.
or 7.
Quite a few. Quite a
Yeah,
few.
we've done lots of conversations.
Yeah.
We've gone viral a couple of times, you
Yeah.
know, globally viral, worldwide viral.
Mhm.
You know, I've also watched some of the conversations you had with your favorite Neanderthals.
My favorite Neanderthals.
Yeah,
okay.
you need to rank them in like a top 3 between Peter Kreel, Ernst Roots, and Rob Hersov.
All right. So firstly, I'm not going to play with that Neanderthal rhetoric. However, if you're talking about the white people I speak to, given the race, who are my top 3 favorites? I don't think I have a favorite of any of them. But obviously, with Ernst Roots, I got history because him and I went to the same high school. And Rob Hersov lives in my neighborhood. So that's how I know him. With Peter Krill, I met him on the internet.
He lives in Sandton, not Cape Town?
He lives in Cape Town and Sandton. So his parents live in Sandton. So whenever he's in you know,
I thought his parents live in Westcliff.
Nah, he lives with his parents.
No, I thought his parents live in Westcliff.
Nah, they live in Morningside.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
They moved from Westcliff.
Nah, they've always been in Morningside.
They've always been in Morningside?
Yeah.
They never had the Hersov and Manel mansions weren't up there on the hill in
They
Westcliff?
probably did, but they've always lived in Morningside.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in my neighborhood. So who are my favorite? Who would I hang out with again? Probably Rob. I want to see what these parties are like. You know, he kind of have a lot of those. Ernst Roots would be my second favorite because he's on a mission that I think he's on a. Yeah, sometimes his mission can be a little bit sketchy, but he's on a good mission. Peter, I feel like he's got a lot to learn. So, yeah, I would hang out with him just to pick his brain a little bit. But I did you justice because the last time he was here on a podcast, he was chewing you up. So, for your sake, I went there and did you some justice.
Oh,
yeah, but I love the kid though. Yeah. Okay. He chewed you up on the podcast. Come on now.
Which podcast?
The podcast you had with him right here.
Okay, I wouldn't say he was chewing me up. I don't think I was on the table to be eaten. You know, I was in the meal. But tell me about what you guys did.
Well, we had a chat about, what is he doing and why is he doing it? Now, there's a lot of things that were spoken off camera, and I said to the kid that, look, you got to be careful in this climate because in the political climate that you're speaking of, a lot of people, black people, are feeling like you're championing for them. But the same black people that you're championing for, you could stay the same guy, and then a climate change of politics happened, and you're going to be a villain out of nowhere. So I'm like, be careful of your activism because I like the kid. I really do like the kid. The kid didn't realize that I'm literally double his age at that point. And, he took it in. He took it in a little bit. And some of it is on camera.
He's 24, right?
No, he's 21.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So from now on, he should call me uncle.
Yeah.
But the kid is a good kid. I like the kid. I think, he's going somewhere. But I do think he just needs to be a little careful.
Okay. And then Ernst, your high school mate?
Okay, so we were actually in the same classes, some of the same classes. His mom taught science. So I wouldn't say I know him intimately because I never knew Ernst Roots was going to be somebody, at any given point. But to find along the way that he became somebody and I met him about 20 years later, that conversation was just based in that room at my house when we were doing the podcast. And I saw him do the run with Jordan Peterson and Daily Wire and all those. I was like, okay, I understand the mission that he's on, but also I told him, look, bro, I need you to be careful. I understand what you're doing, and for the most part, I do appreciate it. But if you say one thing wrong and the sanctions brought up or something goes to the disadvantage of South Africa, they're just going to point at you without understanding. So it was also another somebody I said, be careful,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with Rob,
have
you guys spoken since you recorded?
On calls, maybe text.
Okay.
But Rob is a little bit of a dick.
When last did you speak?
On the phone.
To the Richard.
I don't know when last.
For those that don't know English, Richard is another way.
His full name?
No, Dick is Richard.
Oh, did I say dick on camera?
He said he's a dick, yeah. But that's fine. He said I'm a jackass when he
Really?
was speaking to you about me. Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
no. So in
you
this,
can
in
return the
this-
favor on my behalf since you.
No, not even. It's not even. It's not even like I'm trying to attack Rob. I mean, it's his character. This is how he is, and I think he should stay what he is.
He's
I
a rich kid.
He's a dick, and he should be a dick because that's how he is. You know, that's
That's how rich kids usually are. Nepo babies.
and Nepo babies. I mean, I've been called that a couple of times myself, but I just think he's a little too much of a dick
Napolitana
sometimes.
baby.
A what?
A Napolitana baby.
A Napolitana nepotism.
You grew up on ice cream.
I did.
Yeah,
I grew up on-
Napolitana.
I did. Yeah, did. So I think he should just stay who he is. I just think as well that he needs to understand who he is in the context of people. And he needs to understand vice versa. Again, a lot of activists are actually on a good mission, but they don't understand the full context. And how can they? They're just individuals.
But he's quit his activism since he's returned from the United States, where he went on a podcast tour where he was trying to be the NOTA in America. Going on each
Oh,
and
you're
every
trying to
single-
get me to get him. You guys put like a conversation arena. Well, look, again, it's one of those things that when you do those tours.
I mean, when I do podcasts as a guest, I go viral. Guaranteed.
yeah.
He hits and misses.
What you want me to say about that?
No, I'm just saying. He
'Cause
came
I ain't
back.
tryna compare
None
you.
of the clips of his tour in America went viral. You know what I mean? None of them were the biggest episodes on the channels, most impactful episodes on any of the channels he went to.
I mean, you do understand him and all the people that are white speak to the minority of the people in South Africa. So that's the thing is you speaking to a bigger demographic.
Yeah, but he was speaking
So
to
I
white
think-
people in America and he still wasn't getting his views across.
It's not like white people in America actually care, right?
Exactly.
It's not even about it's.
No, they don't care.
Okay,
He
here's so
worked,
so let me
he
so
worked
let me,
for
let me
Rupert
lay
Murdoch.
down,
Hold on. He worked for Rupert Murdoch.
right?
Right? That's Fox News. That's a guy who should know media. That's Sky News. That's UK bugging the Prince, bugging King Charles, bugging the whole entire 10 Downing Street, bugging the whole entire House of Commons, whatever, the Parliament in Australia, Come on,
Can-
the Murdoch
can I
Empire.
give- can I give you some
worked-
bad
Hold on,
news?
hold on. I just want to say, if you worked for Rupert Murdoch, how are you out communicated by NOTA, who's never worked for any media institution apart from his own, if he calls himself a media institution?
It's an unfair comparison. Firstly,
Okay, how
it's-
do you
so,
get?
So,
okay,
so let
no,
me-
no, wait. Let's
You
go
asked
back.
me a
Let
question, I'm waiting to answer.
You said it's an unfair comparison.
Yeah.
Let me make it more fair. How do you, as the child of one of the founding families of South African capitalism, the Hersov and Menel family, AVI has given us many products, many brands that we eat to this day. I&J, heart of the home. You know those ads?
Yeah, I do
that's
know those
that's
ads.
them.
Yep.
So he comes from that family, right? I come from, whatever, number 17, whatever, Funduzi Street, Deep Kloof, Soweto, Zone 2. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
2 streets up from Magubenjalo.
Mhm.
You understand? That's my first home. But
Really?
yeah, exactly. That's my first home. That's our home. We weren't allowed to own land as black people, right? That are not privileged or part of the
I can't
apartheid power structure.
I can't relate.
Yeah. So the black people that were part of the apartheid structure, like yourselves and other families, you guys could own properties in suburbs and everything else. Us normal folks, like our parents had to wait until June 1990. Probably like June the 26th.
We had a lot of
or-
white people working for us, at that time.
Yeah.
So while
My
everybody,
dad also had white people working for him, even though he wasn't able to own land in white areas. So I'm
so
just
you-
saying, like,
so let's go back to the original
So hold on.
question.
So wait. I'm just saying, my dad worked for Goldfields,
Mm-hmm.
right, for 10 years, so that he could get the license that a black person needs in 10 years of working to then start his own company, right? That's where I come from. But still, I'm able to get my message across, out communicate Rob and all the other Neanderthals, the whole entire Afrikaner contingent that went to the Hudson Institute
yeah.
and came back with the list of 4 demands that America wants, or the American conservatives want, to normalize relations between South Africa and them, like prioritizing farm murders or rural crime, deracializing legislation, like abandoning BE, which will never happen. American companies benefit from BE as well, and
Let me
they
just
haven't
make it
stopped
clear. There's
trading
some
with
things
us.
with Rob that I do agree with him, right?
Okay.
So I'll specify them once I remember them. So your question is, how is a guy who comes from Deep Sloot, his first home, and somebody who's been a billionaire,
Deep
all this
Kloof.
deep
There was
Kloof.
no Deep Sloot in 1990
hell
when I was born.
hell. So Deep Kloof, which one is it?
Deep
One of the
Kloof.
deeps.
Deep Kloof.
Deep Kloof, right?
Yeah.
And there's a billionaire who worked for Fox News. He was mentored by Rupert. Good and well, you spoke to a mass of people. He tried that, but he couldn't speak to the mass. He wasn't speaking to the masses. He wasn't trying to speak to black people per se. And not to say that.
What do you mean? He went to McGee's podcast. He went to
Yeah,
Penwell's
yeah, yeah.
podcast.
Okay,
He's already said.
I'll take that.
He's
I'll take
already
that.
said.
But let me answer the question.
He's already said on his podcast tour that he went on the Black podcast to speak to black people and
Right.
become famous amongst black audiences because blacks are so enamored by whites that even a white Nepo baby, who's got really nothing to offer them except for his capitalist manifesto, seems intriguing.
And I'm a capitalist, by the way.
Yeah.
A hyper capitalist, except just a little bit more pragmatic in this instant. Look, most people cannot relate with Rob because Rob is a top 0.5% of the world, right? So he's not relatable. You are. You understand? I understand him because
he's not likable.
Yeah, he's not. Yes, he's also not likable.
Yeah, I don't try to be liked, but I'm liked.
You became liked. You were hated for a long time.
It doesn't matter. I'm likable.
Yeah, so the thing is, you did your time, right? If Rob had to stay here long enough, just be on podcast, eventually he's going to start making sense. It's how it works. When you get in here, everybody's like, we don't like your ideas. Get away with it. You think you're... And then after a while, when they get used to you, then boom, you're a superstar. Like, yeah, I see.
Nah.
Remember the days... Remember back in the days when you were an idiot to everybody?
I was never an idiot to everybody.
No, there was a time where it's like, Nota, why don't you just shut up? But now everybody's like, we want to hear Nota speak.
Okay,
so you got to do the time.
No, there was never a time where the majority of people online were clowning me or whatever. It's a small minority, maybe an influential minority at first, but all of them I'm smarter than. So like after like 10 interactions, the entire audience realizes that actually Nota's smarter than you. He gives us more value
smarter
than you.
than the people.
Hold on.
That's
I'm
no
just
doubt
saying,
about that.
Wait. I just want to explain to you. I did the work by being within the community. I did the work by uplifting people. I did the work by giving of my services. You understand? I've got empathy. I've got an understanding for people. I'm not arrogant. You know what I mean? I don't talk down to people. That's why
I think you are arrogant and you do talk down to people. But the thing is,
No. I think
hang
that
on.
no. Wait.
I'm not
I'm not going to let you get away with that. Wait. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Number one, you called me once. I came to your house. I'm not arrogant. A guy with 5 subscribers. No. I'm just saying a guy with 5 subscribers or whatever lives in freaking Hammanskraal, right? That's a 300 Rand petrol trip with a toll gate as well. I drive to podcast. I don't even charge him a cent because I'm trying to assist someone because I have a vision for the type of people that I would like to have a hand in succeeding so that we can all join hands one day once we're more successful to help one another. So Rob Hersov has not done any of that work. He hasn't gone into the community. He hasn't suffered with the people. He hasn't understood.
He doesn't have to.
No, I'm just saying that's the arrogance of whiteness.
It's not the arrogance.
No, wait.
About...
I wanna correct you. Yeah, that's the arrogance of whiteness. They've got a paternalistic relationship with all black people. They think that they've got all the solutions for black people, but all our problems have been created by white people and their capitalism, whatever it is, their lack of Ubuntu, all of those things, all of those problems have been made by white people. And then now this white person who's benefited from our commodification of our bodies, number one, because we're seen as just labor or cheap labor or slave labor, whatever the case may be, gets rich and then decides that he's going to come on a microphone and a platform and tell us that, all the policies that have been about addressing or redressing the past inequities that he's benefited from in chief, along with, the other 10th of a percentile of the ultra rich, And
Look,
then
I'm a policymaker myself. Right?
Yeah, but I'm just
a
saying,
policymaker.
if he comes on,
I write policies.
that's
or
fine.
I'm part of a writing of policies that will help legislation. The thing is that you're saying a lot, and then you're attaching one person to a group of people, and so that's everybody.
No. I'm saying he sounds like each and every single white person that's dismissed because they're arrogant and they think white people have the solution to all problems, and they've only got fanboys in white people or black people who think that they're white people or act like white people or try to assimilate to white culture and think that that will help them progress. But I mean, if you look at white culture, it's got the greatest savagery. I mean, you know your parents.
You do realize you're saying so many things.
Yeah,
We got to
I'm
break
saying
it
so
down
many
to
things,
a
but I'm
string.
just saying is that you know your parents, right? You live with them. You know your grandparents.
Greatest parents ever.
Exactly. You're not going to send them off to a home, even if it's got 24-hour nursing and all the full service. You're going to take care of your parents yourself. Rich white people send their parents off to homes, let them die, abandon them. There's, I mean, an Afrikaner who left his entire family, you know, went over to the States to start over
okay,
again.
so let's make that analogous.
No,
let,
wait,
let
wait,
me
wait,
let me
wait,
track
wait,
your
before
conversation.
then.
You're not letting me speak.
Hold on. I just want to say, before that white person goes to America, right? All his ancestors that arrived here also abandoned their families in Europe and came here. So they've got this savagery of like disassociating themselves from their family, you know, and thinking that water is thicker than blood, right? And then they want to talk to us about the value of water when we're like, damn, you're feeding off of our blood.
I'm trying to figure out how you want me to respond to that, because you said a lot of things, and the thread of that conversation is very, very tough, right? Because
Is there a place for a white person like Rob to speak to black people or lecture us about anything?
You'd have to allow me to answer, all the questions from the beginning.
I'm just summarized it there.
Considering that there's just so much you asked, let me answer this one. You said, "Do I think Rob?"
Is there a space for guys like Rob to lecture us or to speak to?
Lecture us. Okay, so that question is not very coherent, right? Okay, given all that you said.
Okay.
Rob and everybody has a space. I mean, you go from the extreme left to the extreme right. Everybody has a space. I'm just figuring out how these people come together, because everybody has their fair share of ego. Now, I've been in a room with a lot of, straight after this, I need to be with one of the presidents, at my house. And you listen to them, politics is about ego. So does Rob have a place? Yes, he does have a place. Do I think his place is he's in a perfect position? Absolutely not. There's a lot of things that I think Rob himself could fix. But I'm kind of surprised that we haven't a podcast about Rob. We should have a podcast about ideas. It's like, where can people fix? I know I'm going to sound like Musi Maimani for a couple of seconds here, but South Africa should be a one country as opposed to, a country of various people thinking that they are apart from each other. I look at countries like Rwanda, Kagame. I've been to Rwanda, right? So I travel these countries. I've actually been around these people. And you go to Rwanda, there's two main groups called the Hutsis and the Tutsis. You're not allowed to say that in the country. If you actually ask, hey, are you a Hutu? There's problems. You might not even get back into the country. These two people are not allowed to ask each other.
Why?
Because of the past genocide.
Because they genocided one another.
Correct.
South Africans have never done that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
right?
so therefore,
so the comparison,
remove that comparison.
No, it's a good comparison because
it's not. It's a terrible comparison because black people have been living together under apartheid, post-apartheid, during colonialism, and have never savaged one another.
So the analogous of that is the oneness. I'm speaking about a oneness.
They're not one in Rwanda.
In Rwanda, have you been to Rwanda?
They genocided. I will never go to Rwanda.
I'm saying, have you ever been to Rwanda?
I will not go to Rwanda.
Okay, so how are they not one? Because those people are
just
one.
like, I don't make a habit of traveling to Nigeria. In fact, I've never been there.
You should go there.
No, I can't. Until Nigerians, right, take care of themselves as a country and respect themselves to the point where they demand a government, a proper government that doesn't have them defecating in the streets, I won't visit them.
Well, South Africa is also not a country that takes care of itself. As a matter of fact, it's finding itself in a place where it deteriorates itself all the time.
Well, we just spoke about Deep Sloot, which didn't exist when I was born and now exists, has got, Nelson Mandela.
It's
right
four
here,
ways.
next to Stain City.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's the one. In Stain City also didn't exist. William Nicol was just a small road. When we first moved here in 1990, Peter Venning Road was like the main thing that Astron or Caltech's garage on Peter Venning was like one of the main garages here. Four Ways was a four-way stop. There wasn't Montecasino and any of the development that you've seen. My grandmother didn't have electricity back then, but now she's got electricity. There's lights when I go into the rural areas. So I dismiss any of that rubbish that people talk about. Can I ask you
something very important?
No. I dismiss all of that rubbish that people talk about when 30% of our country was connected to electricity at the time that we went into democracy, and now over 90% of our country is connected to electricity, and no other African country can match that.
Okay, it's one of those statements that is very hard to respond to once again. But I
It
want to ask
can't
you,
be responded to because those countries exited colonialism in 1958 onwards up until 1974. And we were delayed by another 20 years when the last of the other
yeah,
colonized
but the
nations
other
was
countries are
released,
far
right?
behind South Africa,
And
like by
and
quite a gap.
under the black leadership, because the black leadership in the time that they've had power or political power have not developed their countries, whereas our black leadership has developed our country immensely, even though there's been great challenges to doing that.
Okay, so if you want to compare black leadership, say for the past 30 years versus say a different country, please tell me the differences that black people did on over their own backs, not over the whites. Now, let's have a conversation, black man onto black man. The failings and the progresses of black people as far as governance.
I'm just
Go.
saying, if you want to compare South Africa to Rwanda, it's a non-comparison because Rwanda, you've got Kigali,
Okay,
and that's
let's leave- let's
hold on,
leave
that's hold
Rwanda.
on, that's the only place that you've actually got development, right? Kigali doesn't even have an economy bigger than Bloemfontein. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
Do you know how
Bloemfontein is one
small
of
is Rwanda?
It doesn't matter.
I mean, it's
I'm talking
probably
about
the
it
size
doesn't
of
matter.
Gauteng.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the Vatican is very small, right? But it's got a very high GDP, does it not?
Well, the Vatican.
It doesn't
used to
matter
own-
the reason why
I
it's got
think
a.
you- I need
I'm
to-
just
I
saying
think
that
you need to
if you
work
talk
on the
about
it
the
doesn't
size of the
matter. I think you
it
need to
doesn't
work on
matter
the it doesn't
because
matter thing because it does.
No,
because
it doesn't.
the Vatican,
because,
you have to go back.
wait,
it was the Roman
hold on.
Empire first.
The reason
and then
why
it came down to be
doesn't
the
matter
Vatican.
because the size
Mhm.
of the place is what we were referring to. That Rwanda is very small, whatever the case may be, right? I'm talking about Kigali. Kigali is a city, right? There's many cities on the African continent.
Cleanest city in the world, cleanest city in all of Africa. It
can-
doesn't matter.
It could be clean.
Yeah.
It does not matter. I mean,
I love this. It doesn't matter.
Can I tell you what's cleaner? Uncontacted places that don't have buildings, that don't have paper, that don't have plastic,
Okay.
with zero development. So
help me understand.
I'm
the
just saying.
sense.
I'm just saying. And if we talk about cleanliness and we're talking about the streets are clean, but yet you cannot breathe the air, that's also another level of cleanliness that we need to discuss. Uncontacted areas have got clean air. They've got no buildings. They've got no tar roads. They've got nothing. They've got no carbon footprint apart from the firewood that they burn to keep themselves warm. But even then, that carbon is absorbed because the forests are carbon basins. I'm speaking about the fact that South Africa has developed, and we always like to look at other African countries that were either decolonized or taken out of colonial powers earlier than us, right? Have had a slower rate of development than us, right? And yet, when we look at South Africa and how far, I mean, come on, Nigeria has got 3 times our population. But if you look at our collection of taxes,
5
we
times.
outstrip them. It's not 5 times. 60 million versus 200 million. It's not 5. Okay, it's 3. So, trust me.
They're more than 200
I'm
million
good.
at this
I'm
stage.
good. I'm
They're
good.
going for
I'm good.
300 actually.
Yeah, no. They're not up to.
Okay,
They can't
but
go.
yeah,
they
let's-
can't increase their population by 100 million. They
But
cannot.
that's fine.
Yeah,
For
you
the sake
understand
of
what I'm saying?
argument, you're right.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
No, their last stated.
No, it's
like
fine.
after the
I'm
census, they had
happy-
180 million people. Right?
Yeah, 188 million people.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So they're now
and
about
we've
200.
got 62 million people. You times that by 3. What is that?
You are correct. I've conceded and said you're correct.
Yeah. No, my arithmetic is very good. So, like I was saying, we speak about these issues, and then you've got a government that's developed this country, right, against all odds. Developed its people as well. Gone a different route from the route that Kenya went, which is also another developing nation, which was freed also in the late 50s after the Mau Mau
60s,
rebellion or whatever. You know what I mean? Well, it was liberalized in the late 50s.
It was formalized in the 60s,
Yeah, exactly, when it had its government. So why is it that, we can never hear white people saying, hey, there's a lot of progress that's been made within this country, but the biggest problem is that there's more and more Black people falling behind than what was the goal to allow everybody to take part in the economy in 1994 and not be restricted by their race.
Here's something that needs to be understood, is that politics is never fair.
Yeah.
Ever, it will never be fair, and that's how it is. Now, the beautiful thing about democracy, which everybody seems to hate and talk against, is that the power is in the hands of the people, but the people hand that power over to the government. Now, I need you to understand is that when anybody...
Do they hand the power over or the responsibilities to exercise
the power
power?
and the responsibilities. Thanks for actually bringing that up. The issue here is that the problem I see is more with the people. as opposed to the government, because the government, what they are doing, or people in power inside the government, or people who are in the structures of the economy, they're trying to make sure that they benefit as much as possible, and they will always put it in ways that they structure it, that they protect it. Well, I would do the same damn thing if I were in government, right? I wouldn't loot, but I would make sure that I'm protected for life. Now, that's what they do. And then what happens is that your disadvantage starts kicking in many, many years later. And it's going to be hard for you to track back where the problems is. So I say the people need to start saying, hey, man, we put you in those positions. We're going to have to take you out. We need people to put people into governance in an orderly way. Let's look at countries like Europe. When we get to, I lived in Germany before.
Let's
right?
not look at
Now, I
another
give an
country. Let's look at
example.
South Africa. Look at KZN.
I do want to look at, just as an example.
Oh, KZN. Let's look at KZN.
All right. No, we will indeed. Let me just make this example.
Mhm.
You go to a country in Europe and gas prices go up by 30 cents, right? Or euro. Do you know what happens to the streets? They lock it down. They lock it down. Nobody's going to
In
work.
France, yes.
Yeah, in different countries as well.
Yeah,
It's not
some
just down
countries
France.
more than others.
Right. I know. The French just love protesting. I just land there and people are just protesting. The
Yeah,
French,
they took a baseball bat to all the speeding cameras.
right. And they start wearing Superman cloaks and all. The French, they're crazy like that.
I mean, they're the
And they stop-
revolutionaries. They're the Enlightenment era people, right?
Yeah, and the people that shat in the water so that the Olympics does not happen. So what happens is that nobody works. So the government understands, hey, these people are not playing. The economy can take a massive knock. So they drop the prices, reminding the government that they put them there in place, right? South Africa doesn't have that kind of culture. Yes, South Africa protests a lot. And yes, the protests are organized, but they're not protesting in ways that will force the government to do certain things.
Like
and
what?
That, for example, if today they pick up the petrol prices and people just said, look, we're not going to work. It will knock the economy. Yes, it will knock their stomachs. And yes, it will knock their business, but they would understand that they're forced to fix it.
Okay.
Whereas the government, people in government are very arrogant. They're like, you know what? We're going to pick up prices. We're going to pick up taxes and y'all guys have to pay while we keep stealing.
What happened
That's how it
with
works.
the July unrest
Where?
in KZN and Gauteng?
What happened? I'm not familiar.
Oh,
with
you
it.
don't know there was looting after
Oh, yes,
President
yes.
Zuma? I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Well, that is part of it. But then
Okay, let's talk about KZN
Yeah.
changing governments from IFP to ANC and now a multi-party coalition
a multi-party
with the DA in the mix. They've
Mhm.
changed governments 3 times now.
Yeah, it's tricky because I'm not very well versed in that, so I'll have to withdraw my comments on that because some people are forced to become.
Okay, let's talk
alliances.
about the Western Cape because
Yeah.
they were under National Party rule first, and then they
Mhm.
went under ANC rule in
Mhm.
the Democratic South Africa, and now they're under DA rule. So
Mhm.
that's also parties.
So what are
being
we talking
changing?
about?
I'm
the-
just saying people are throwing
Mhm.
out. Let's talk about the ANC falling below 40%. They're at 39.7%,
I had 39 now.
0.7%. That's my 5 p.m. alarm.
Yeah, you and always being late.
Mm.
All right.
Sorry.
What specifically are we talking about there? Are we
I'm
talking
just
about the
saying that
governance or the popularity?
The people of
Mhm.
South Africa
Mhm.
choose different leaders all the
Right.
time. We change over our leaders.
Mhm.
We're let down by our leaders. There
Yeah.
is some progress being made, but the progress is too slow to meet the demands.
Look, South Africa does not have good quality leaders. What happens is that for them, it's either populism. So populism has become the order of the day. We have to make sure as a leader to become as popular as possible and try to knock down as much parties as much as possible. I had a podcast with Musi Maimani here, and I said to him and Herman Mashaba, and I said, my issue with everybody here is egos.
And
Y'all-
Bongani Baloyi.
Hey, and Bongani Baloyi, but he's more on the left. I was talking to the people on the right here. So
Well, he's from Action SA and DA.
yeah, but he's gone left. And then DA is a little bit on
Would
the
you
right.
say that the conservative MK party is on the left?
They're on the left, yeah. They're
Okay.
definitely on the left.
Okay.
The conservatism, I'm not sure if they're conservative as you're describing them.
I
but
mean, they're about traditional values,
in their
paying homage
tradition,
to the-
it's got
that's
conservatism.
conserving.
Yes, that's true.
Conservation
But-
is
but-
about conservatism, and they're trying to conserve African
Mhm.
spirituality, African leadership, African political structures.
Yeah, but they definitely, with that being said, they're definitely on the left. And they're actually quite far left.
How so?
Well, go ask them. You go
Well,
see it.
I mean, if you think that there's an original sin of people being displaced from their land and
Mhm.
them having that land taken away and reclaiming that land, not under some leftist
Being
or
left or
socialist
right is not connected
ideology.
to
I'm just
land.
saying. I'm just saying. Not under some leftist or a socialist ideology,
Mhm.
right? You want to reclaim that land for nationalistic purposes.
They're not really socialists.
And I understand. But that's what the left is. The left are the socialists. So if you're saying that
No,
MK,
it's not. It's not how
the
it
left
works.
are
It
the
doesn't
socialists.
mean you're writing on the capitalism. There's a whole
No.
different
The left and the
spectrums of it.
right is about capitalism and socialism. That is how it's
no,
defined
it's not
right
how-
now in the current terms. It's about the people who are more socialist.
Left and
who
right,
are-
you can, for example, look, we have an authoritarian who's on the left. His name is
Who?
Julius Malema, the EFF. You
ha-
have an authoritarian government that was on the right, which was the apartheid government. So you could be it depends on the combination of things that will make you left or right. It's not
I don't
socialism
think that
versus
I don't think
capitalism.
that the apartheid government was on the right. I think that they were on the left. I just think that
No,
because
they were far right.
what we see is far right as racist and white. Yes, now we say that. But if we look at them, they had state-owned enterprises. You know, the state controlled everything. They were just like China, except ran by white people. It was a white socialist country.
Look, the apartheid government was largely
Socialist.
capitalist.
Socialist.
No. Ooh, no.
How can they
Who-
be
who
capitalist
was
when
actually,
hold on? How can they be capitalist when their companies are sanctioned?
Mhm.
They cannot build multinationals. They cannot leave the country. You know what I mean? They have to be domiciled outside of the country if they want to expand into other markets. Not that they are growing from South Africa. The country was under sanctions, couldn't trade with many of the world.
I think
had to be isolated. You know,
of left and right.
we had things like the IDC. Van der Bijl built the IDC, ESCOM, all this whole entire thing. He's even got a whole entire town called Van der Bijl Park named after him. All of that was government building all these businesses. That makes the National Party government a socialist government. If you look at the policies that they
Would
came
you say,
on, wait,
am I understanding you saying that it's a socialist?
they were socialist because they were-
socialist authoritarianism. Is that what you're saying?
Authoritarianism and socialism is China, right?
Yeah, more communist, but yeah.
Yeah, just hold on, Papa. Ndlek recording, ndlek shooting, nendla podcast. Minjani ka? Okay, my dad had the flu earlier. Sorry, but you were saying, yeah.
I was. No, you were the one talking. Let's actually talk about Kenya.
No. Okay, like continue. Tell me how the white people were capitalist.
They were very, very capitalist. I mean, the capitalism that is being carried over from the government that South Africa is having today actually comes from apartheid.
No, it
was
doesn't.
not something that started in
No, it doesn't. It comes from the
1994.
sanctions. So in
Oh, yeah,
1986, when South Africa was sanctioned, the companies, right, the state-owned companies, then started building the private companies. Your Mnet was built out of the same leadership of SABC to now start a private company. Sanlam was taken from the government pension funds to start as a private financial institution. So 1986, when Ronald Reagan was forced to sanction South Africa because Congress overrode his veto, right? South Africa then started liberalizing its economy because it knew that the National Party government would now have to face elections within the next coming years because the Soviet Union was going to fall and the communist threat was then going to evaporate. And once the communist threat evaporates, all the support that they're getting from the Republicans, the Democrats, or all other American administrations to prop up this apartheid government would fall away. So they started these capitalist companies that then started emerging in the 90s. I mean, Postnet, right? Postal services, all of that. That's what started Vodacom. Vodacom started out of Postnet. The head of Postnet then was deployed to start a Vodacom, found capital partners in the Ruperts and the Rothschilds and everything else. And then that's how you got Vodacom. And then you had experts in mobile telephony coming in from IBM and all over the world, South African diaspora, your Les Mampesinya. And then they started a mobile telephony networks in South Africa, which is another private company. You know, it's headed up by Ralph Mupita, services over 190 million customers. You know, it's one of the biggest mobile networks in Iran right now, you know.
Nota, I want us to have a conversation where we're exchanging ideas. A conversation of who knows how much information we have would not be fruitful. And this is why I'm a pragmatic capitalist, right? I'd like to exchange an information with you, and at the end of the day, I walk away from here and say, damn, what Nota said, I'm going to apply. And I want you to feel the same. So how about we have that kind of conversation?
I mean, we're having that conversation.
I feel like it's a matter of dropping knowledge because we could drop knowledge all day,
we're
every
not
day.
dropping knowledge. I'm just saying that there's a lot of mischaracterizations about, you know, our political trajectory in South Africa. And there's a lot of misunderstanding.
So the one ahead of us.
No, I'm saying our trajectory, like how, if you track our progress
Okay.
over the years.
Mhm.
There's a lot of mischaracterizations, like people saying that right now we've got a socialist government when actually what
We don't have it. We've got a
is
capitalist government.
No, we've got a neoliberal government.
It's a blended government. So we
It's
have like
that's called neoliberalism. It started in the 1930s after the Great Depression era.
okay. The issue is that you're not completely wrong. Neither are you completely right. But the thing is, labeling like that is incorrect. So if we were looking at South Africa, it's more like 60, 65%, maybe even 70% capitalism, and there is socialism in it. And the thing is, socialism is rising more and more and more. So the thing is, it's becoming more and more blended. But the neo side of it is because you're bringing it from the past, right? And that's where we get the neo side of things. But to label it a neoliberal, no, it's not quite the case. It's more of a blended.
No, well,
So we can call it a blended.
So, what it's a misnomer. It's an oxymoron called state capitalism.
Mhm.
That's where the neoliberalist doctrine comes from,
Mhm.
and it's about saying
So
that
which is the misnomer, so I can understand you?
state capitalism.
Okay.
You can't have state and capitalism at the same
Mhm.
time. Capital is about private entities, engaging
That's
in
why
business
it's called
on their
a
own.
blended economy.
I understand that. A blended economy that is set up by state doing business.
Mhm.
If you look at a lot of the trade that happens in our country, right, within the country, a lot of it is between entities that are either state run or doing business with the state. You look at Discovery, it's one of the biggest companies. It does a lot of business with the state. The medical aid business, they get a lot of subsidies. The private clinics, they also get funded, get subsidized, and all that stuff. They do a lot of business with the state. The state is probably one of the primary customers of all the biggest pension funds of the banks as well, because the state doesn't borrow money from the Reserve Bank directly. It borrows it from private banks, and even more recently, the IMF and the World Bank. Against advice that I would give them. I mean, if I were the head of the treasury right now, if I was wearing Enoch Godongwana's hat, number one, I'd be wearing a cap, not one of those funny
How about
cowboy
we find
hats.
you a position that will work for you? Maybe a spokesperson
No,
of
well,
some sort.
what I'd say is that
Maybe I should start a political party
so
and hire you.
so to think about this idea,
Yeah.
I think you might have traveled there. I'd borrow the money in Hong Kong dollars, because in Hong Kong right now the interest rate is 0, right? I'd convert it into US dollars, right? And then do the infrastructure projects and everything else, right? Using those US dollars as the capital that I need, instead of borrowing from the World Bank at 8.7% interest rate. $1.5 billion for infrastructure projects, and then you have to pay that back in rand denominated currencies, because the money that you earn to pay back that loan in dollars, you earn it in rands, and as the rand is weakening, it means that the interest that you pay on the loan is now exacerbated by the currency fluctuations. So it seems like our government and the people that are in charge of policy are trying to entrap us in debt. They're trying to ensure that we fall part of the debt trap that Iran is trying to avoid by bombing Israel and ensuring that they don't have, a Rothschild-managed central bank.
So again, I'm struggling to follow your conversation because it's just threaded over a lot of things. I know that you've got fans that love your conversations, and I'm happy with that. I'm not trying to talk down to your fans.
Which part do you want me to ask?
Jesus,
in
I mean,
one
from
question?
the beginning of the podcast. Oh, did I say Jesus out loud like that? I couldn't follow your conversation because I'm not quite sure what we're talking about.
We're talking about this current dispensation,
Okay,
right?
dispensation of
The government in South
the
Africa.
government in South Africa,
Right? Since the democratic South Africa. And you were saying that it's a socialist government, and I'm saying that it's not.
South Africa is not a socialist government.
Well, it's a mix.
It's a
but
blended.
It's 60% socialist.
No, the other way around. 60 or more percent capitalist.
Okay,
and
sorry,
then it's
I misheard
socialist,
you.
and it's growing in its socialism.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I'm not liking the fact that its socialism is growing.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell us why.
Obviously there's the rhetoric of socialism doesn't work anywhere. Socialism doesn't work anywhere. The issue is that I'm having is that Black people need to stop having a hyper dependence on the government. The government is important to run, rule, and govern the country. That is very, very important. But the more dependence you have on that, the government will dictate what you should do, how you should live, why you should live. And what they generally do is that they blame some other people. In South African context, it will be white people. Not to say white people are innocent. Of course, there's a lot of things that they're guilty for, 100% sure. But the thing is that we as Black people need to, I say we because I'm Black, but the thing is I've never experienced a place where I've been, how can I put it?
Discriminated against because you're Black.
Yeah, well, my life has been good. We know, we all know that.
Yeah,
much.
you got white privilege.
I got better than white privilege. I think white people got my privilege, right? Let's just put that out there first and foremost, right? Because I also, okay, let me actually just track back. I don't even think about white privilege like that. I think it's wealth privilege. You see, it's white privilege really depends on your wealth. So generally, white people make more than black people, so therefore they have a white privilege. But if you make more than those white people, they wish to have your privilege.
Okay.
I can tell you.
Who makes more between Ernie Els and Cyril Ramaphosa?
I do not know any of them individually like that.
I've been just saying, who makes more?
I think who's got more access to money is definitely Cyril.
Okay.
Who would make more in his pocket is likely to be Ernie.
Okay, so now Donald Trump respects people with money. So he would know that Cyril Ramaphosa is a billionaire in his own right, sitting right next to him, a dollar billionaire sitting right next to him.
It's not a dollar billionaire, Cyril, is it?
Well, I mean, okay.
Well,
so
no.
let's say he's a billionaire in South African terms,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. And he's also the state president. Why is it that Ernie Els would earn more respect from Donald Trump just as a golfer,
How do you
world
think-
number 2 for many, many years?
Well, Ernie Els has got a couple of properties down in George that his golf course is one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And
Obai.
Donald, hey,
Obai.
Obai.
Obai. Yeah.
Obai, in
Yeah,
George,
yeah.
just slightly outside of George. For those that do not know where it is, Western Cape Province. I've got some pieces of land there. So it's Donald Trump. He just plays golf all the time. Once he would love to go there one time. So there's a sense of relating at some point. Now, the only thing that Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa are relating on is on
Cyril plays
presidency.
golf as well.
Yeah,
lot.
but he doesn't own any golf courses that that
well,
Donald Trump wants to go to. Let's be
How do you know
specific.
that?
Well, we're doing our
I
best
mean, he's a
assumption
member
here.
at all the clubs that
We're
Ernie
doing our
Els
best
owns.
assumption here. So
He's I'm just saying, he's a member at all the clubs that it's like one of the presidential benefits.
yeah, I mean, you're president.
Yeah.
Why not?
Mm.
So the thing is, it's down to that relating. Number one. Number two is that you try and look like for the person that's closest to you. And Cyril is not that to Donald Trump.
How is he not?
I mean, firstly, we can start off with the race. I mean, they look alike. They
And
both look
so is
terrible.
that not white privilege? The fact that he's black,
How's
which
that
takes away points from him at the table with Trump.
Yeah.
If he was white, he'd have more points at the table had he been with an equal stature or the same CV.
Okay, so I see how you
Or
cornered-
resume.
I can see how you cornered my conversation, and I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Right? That's not bad. It's not a bad tact at all. But the thing is, it's and I'm the kind of person, if I see that I'm cornered, and I'll call it out. Right? But the thing is, it's down to relating.
Yeah.
Right? Let's take it like this. If I see person A from Deep Sloot, I wouldn't relate to him at all because of the gap between me and him. And then you might find somebody who's white that is closer to me. I might relate to him more. But if the same white dude is of a different, I don't know, God, I wouldn't be able to relate with him, but I'll be able to relate with a black person from my neighborhood. So it's down to relation. How do that person relate to him? And you feel the same way too. If you're going to go to Lithuania, how many people do you expect to relate to? Very few.
All the bitches.
Damn right. But if you go to Zambia, for example, you're likely to be more relatable to them. The issue here is that in as much as race does matter.
I'm going to Zambia again in September.
I got a couple of women down there. I might just come down with you.
Oh, you got a couple of women.
God, hey man, everybody knows I got area codes. All right, it's not a
254.
Yeah, believe that.
Let's talk about that.
Talk about what?
254.
254. That's Kenya. That's Kenya. All right. So plus 254 was there, and I just came back a couple of days ago. Actually, 3 days ago. And I just missed I almost said protest. I just missed the protest.
The anniversary of the June 25th protest.
Correct. Yeah. So what happened there is the same thing that kind of happens in South Africa, where the government steals from the people, and then the government expects you to pay for it by...
Or the government borrows from foreigners who want to put you in a debt trap and then expects the people to pay
for it.
Yeah.
Right. So this seems to be the way of Africa.
Which is what I was speaking about when I said we should be borrowing the money from Hong Kong and Hong Kong dollars
With
at
a
0% interest.
Yeah, I got babies in Hong Kong as well.
Yeah, well, you know that the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar, right?
I do know that, right? So here's my issue is that... When I got there was already like people dying already in the streets. It's actually pretty sensitive. It's not something that it's really close to the Kenyans' hearts, because last year when they did the financial bill, people were throwing tear gases and whatnot. So what's happening is the people in government, they're starting to buy Bentleys, watches, and everything, and throw it back and say, yo, man, do you see this rolling? This costs about $1 million. You see my son, he goes to this kind of school and says, you're going to stay poor and remain poor. So they really make it really bad.
I see the upgraded State House.
They're upgrading a lot of
But they didn't
individual
put
things.
solar panels on it.
They didn't. Yeah.
Mm.
At least they got electricity.
Yeah, I remember the last time I was in Nairobi, I stayed at the Conrad Hotel, which is a very
Where's the
nice
Conrad
hotel. The Conrad. It's like the Hilton. Conrad
Really?
Hilton.
Yeah.
It's
where
another
is it?
brand. It's like the highest brand of Hilton hotels.
Yeah.
It's in
I
Nairobi.
don't know where it is.
I don't know. It's 40 minutes away from the airport because 5 kilometers takes you an hour in the jam or the
Oh,
traffic or
man,
whatever they call
Nairobi
it. You know what I
traffic.
mean? Yeah.
But
So
I live a great life because there's a guy called Sam K. Shout out to you, Sam K.
yeah, but before
He
I go
gives
there,
me a whole
no,
house there.
before I go there,
Yeah.
no, before I go there. So you were staying in a nice place, and I wanted to get to that, right? And you're going
Hell
to
of a nice
explain
place
it.
in Room.
I was staying at the Conrad Hotel in a hotel room like high up, and higher up than the trees in Kenya because they got really tall trees. It's like a forest in Nairobi. I won't lie. It's a bit of a jungle. But right next door to the Conrad Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel, there was a slum with a shanty town or a squatter camp right next door to the hotel. Like if you stay high up in the hotel enough, you can see
everything.
this right next door. You wouldn't have seen it when we pulled up. I mean, our car was checked when we pulled into the hotel for a bomb sweep. You had to put your things through the metal detectors like you do when you go to Mali. I don't know if you've been to Mali, but they've got
No, I've not been to
yeah,
Mali.
but it's like that in Mali and many other countries. Senegal is also like that.
But you know that bomb sweeping only started recently in Kenya because of a terrorist attack. So
well, there was that mall
happened,
attack.
there was a mall attack.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when they started doing the whole thing to check if nobody's going to come up and blow up the place.
Yeah. So tell us now. You're coming into this place. You're seeing the disparities, right? And apart from racial divisions, there's a lot of tribal divisions. The
All of Africa's got
Kikuyus.
tribal.
Yeah, but South Africa, we've overcome that. We don't have tribal wars. You don't have someone
the reason
catching.
why-
Hold on, you don't have someone catching a taxi from KZN to drive up to go kill someone in Limpopo because they're Tsonga. But you do have that in Kenya and other parts of Africa. I mean, you do have tribalism in that regard. You've got Lerato Ngubeni. You know what I mean? Who is a Sutu girl, and it's got a Tsonga surname or a Shangan surname. Ngubeni might be a Tsonga, Zulu, or whatever. You know what I mean? You've got myself,
Tsonga,
Mhlamulo Baloyi, right? But my younger brother is Sizwe Setu Baloyi because our mother is Xhosa, speaking. So you got a whole lot of mixes. You don't get that type of mix. I mean, the Kikuyu girls are not always the prettiest girls as well, but those are the girls that tell you
I'm
to
gonna get me a girl from Kenya, so I'm gonna leave that out.
No,
of
I'm
the
just saying.
conversation,
I'm just saying from my perspective, right? But those are the girls. They're like, yeah, no, those are the nice girls. Get yourself a nice girl. She probably comes from a good family, and I didn't really understand the dynamic. But now that I'm starting to hear more about these protests that are happening in Kenya and about the tribal divisions that also exacerbate the issue, right? Again, speaking to the success of South Africa as a democratic project and a multi-ethnic country or nation, I find that Kenya might be inspiring in terms of what they're doing right now. The MK came into play in South Africa, got the ANC out of power, had them at 39.7%, and they could not pass a budget on their own. They needed coalition partners. There was an argy-bargy. There was the raising of VAT, which ended up not happening. But there was a political solution to that because they handled the matter within parliament. In Kenya, that was not the case. Now the youth have taken to the streets. The Gen Zs, 28 and younger, Gen Alphas are also throwing rocks at it after school because it seems like the opposition parties aren't able to.
There's no opposition party there. Well, there used to be until Ralia got out of government, and now he's part of the government. Ooh, I better not say that because I'm trying to have a conversation.
Raila Odinga.
Yeah, Odinga.
Yeah, but there was also like conflict when Kenyatta contested Daniel Arap Moi. At some point in time, it led to violence. The elections had to be called off. There had to be a rerun. I think a couple of years afterwards.
The third and fourth president.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's because I was there, and the people that I got to speak to are activists, right? So they don't have like a official group of people. Now in countries like those Uganda, Kenya, they look up to people like Julius Malema. The only difference is that Julius Malema is officialized, right? And then you find many comedians are getting into politics, funny enough, in Kenya, or many musicians. So it seems that they start their career in commercial spaces and they get to be activists.
Like Dave Smith in America, yeah?
Right. So you find people like Bobby Owino.
Bobby Wine.
No, Bobby Wine is Uganda. Babu, I always butcher his name. Babu Owini.
Damn.
Lord knows that.
For your black skin, you got a white tongue, man.
Hey man, I got a hell of a good tongue. Ladies know that. And there's Eric
Okay.
Omondi and all. So these people are like unofficial opposition, so to put it, but they get to the streets.
Mhm.
You know, they get to the streets and actually get it right. But now I worry about it because if these people had to be given money, right, and say, look, somebody from the Western world says, look, we'll give you $2 billion or whatever, just shut the hell up. Are they going to turn on their people? So it worries me what's going on, and a lot of deaths are happening, and I'm glad that these people are coming to the streets. But I'm like, if their pockets had to change, what would their stance be? And I've seen that quite similarly here. You just give somebody a little bit of money, and then they will just go through that agenda based on what the check demands are.
Like Julius.
I don't know who gave him a check, so I can't speak for him like that. However,
Patrice gave him a check, 2.4 mil.
2.4 mil to do what?
We don't know. He hasn't declared it.
Right. So
Maybe to take back Patrice's land and nationalize Harmony Gold.
maybe. The reason I can't speak on that because I don't know that as fact.
Mhm.
Right. I've never had a.
It's fact. It's published
Yes.
as part of the political party funding, and it's written there. Patrice Motsepe and African Rainbow Capital gave the
Correct.
EFF 2.4 million rand.
Correct. But you know how politics works. They mask it under something. So I've never had
But
that
that was
conversation.
declared.
I've never had that conversation with him,
Mhm.
but I'd like to sit down on my podcast with Julius and have, talk about it. He lives down the road from me.
Okay.
Hey, Julius, please come to my podcast. I've been trying to text you. You blue ticking me the whole goddamn time.
Yeah.
Just so he knows.
Sorry, the revolutionary from Strathaven. Yes, continue.
I don't live in. Okay, you know what?
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about Julius.
He's not in Strathaven either.
Where
But I'm
is
not. He's in my neighborhood, but I'm not gonna like expose his neighborhood.
What
Like,
is it's Sandown?
Yes, it is. But for the love of God, I do not want him to come after me because I'm giving out addresses and all.
I mean,
okay?
we know the address of EFF. It's Winnie Mandela House at Gandhi Square. There's a
Yeah,
bus
that's-
terminal right
that
there.
is public knowledge. but
I'm
the
just
rest of it is
saying,
not
there's a
public
bus
knowledge.
terminal right there. I could send 70 people right
This
now.
guy, you gotta leave him out of this conversation.
I'm just saying,
Move on from the
if it was such a
conversation.
danger,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's not so much a danger. It's just that I do not want to see myself in unnecessary conflict with the man. I want the man to come down to my podcast so we can have a conversation. That's
Okay.
it.
So yeah, you were telling me about the situation in Kenya. Please explain
So
it to
the
us.
sad thing is that lives are being taken, and it seems, and the thing is, I have to also be
Or
careful.
lives
how
are being
much-
sacrificed. They're sacrificing their lives.
I mean, you could word it that way, but there are lives that are being taken as well. And like having decoy people come into the protest, right? Because the protest starts off peaceful, and you find that decoy people come in and they act like it's a looting, and then the police.
What's a protest without looting? Ineffective, if you ask me. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I'm not on your side on that one, but
I haven't seen
continuing-
a successful protest without looting or burning down of things.
I mean, I've been part of a few protests. I walked into protests in Germany when I
And
just
then
landed,
what
and
happened?
there was no looting, there was no burning, they were peaceful.
And the
you know?
effects were also as muted.
It's German's business. I have no
Okay.
business
Well,
in
I mean-
those regards.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is that the killings that is happening really does hurt, and to see Africa fall apart like that hurts. Speaking
Kenya's
about
a small part of Africa.
hey, yeah, Africa. I mean, as a overall, because South Africa is falling apart as well. So most countries are falling apart.
But would you say it's falling apart when the people are protesting against misrule?
That's why they're protesting, because things are falling apart. They needed to come back into order.
So if they're protesting and they're showing objection
I'm for the
to
protest,
the,
by the way.
okay, if they're
I'm
showing
not against
objection to the misrule, wouldn't you say that the people are doing what you accuse them of not doing, which is taking responsibility for their own democracies?
I don't know where you're getting that wording from, because I'm saying that they are taking responsibility by getting onto the roads and making.
I'm
those
saying in
protests.
general, on the African continent, you
Uh-huh.
said the problem on the African continent is that people give up their power and their responsibility to governments to then misrule them and abuse them.
Right.
And now the Kenyan youth are trying to take back that power or
Right.
objecting to the power that their parents have relinquished.
Yeah, I'm for that.
Now, why is it that, right, if you're for that and you understand why they're relinquishing this power, that you would say you're a capitalist activist? Because if you look at the Kenyan government and them driving around in Bentleys, having Rolexes and all that stuff, I mean, that's capitalism. It's like you win some, you lose some, and the winners win. And they're eating everything at the table and leaving everyone
It's actually
to
a
die.
brilliant question. So now let's break down, these economical structures. Now, capitalism is not just a one thing. Neither is socialism. Not just a one thing. There's various versions of it, right? There's different shades of blue. You got light blue, dark blue, whatever works in that environment. What's happening is that a lot of, even some of these economies are capitalist economies. What happens is that it funnels through the government first. It's not a free market. Do you understand? It's not a free market capitalism. It's not a pragmatic capitalism.
There's no such thing as a free market capitalism, but anyway.
There is. It's just
As long as there's bombs dropping.
I've noticed that you.
As long as there's bombs dropping. As long as there's bombs dropping.
Such a absolute kind of guy. There is no such thing.
There is no such thing, because every place where there's capitalism, it came with bombs or guns or gunpowder.
Is that our topic for today?
I'm just saying.
Are we going back to how evil white people are again?
It's not about how evil white people are. Let's talk about the peak of capitalism, right? The Gilded Era. That's the Rockefellers and the Carnegies of the world. I mean, at the peak of their wealth.
What are we talking about? 1919 or
1930s.
Okay.
You understand?
Great
At the peak of their wealth, the country went into a Great Depression. You understand? At the peak of capitalism. And they were unable to solve that. And
I
then
think
you look
had
at
this conversation
okay,
before.
that's fine.
We gotta consider
but you look 60 years
they were
later,
preparing for a war.
That's
to
fine.
happen.
That's fine. That's fine. They wanted the war to happen.
Yes, they wanted the
to
war
get
to
their
happen.
aims right. The war happened. They got great wealth in the 1950s, etc., etc. It peaked in the late 80s and then started coming down as soon as the communist threat was eradicated. 1990, you've got the Tiananmen Square protests in China. After many years of humiliation, after rebuilding their economy, after taking it from national party rule and shoving the nationalists down to Taiwan, or Chinese Taipei, however you wanna put it. I believe in the one China policy. Taking back Manchuria, evicting the Japanese, as well with the help of the Americans. They seem to have eradicated more poverty than the Gilded Era guys were able to do.
You're missing a lot of information.
Okay,
Enlighten
me.
Let's go into the pragmatic side of things, because
how was China able?
The difference between
how was China able to reduce poverty at such a rapid rate under a socialist or communist led government, whereas the capitalist United States I guess, abandoned capitalism and chose neoliberalism in the face of the horrors of the Great Depression, and are now speaking about capitalism, even though their capitalism is state-backed.
The thing with your question, or your statement rather, is that it makes it look like there's no country in the world without poverty. Switzerland has poor people eating out the trash, even though it's high on taxes and goes back to the people. It happens that even countries in the Balkans, there's no rich country, and that's a poor side of Europe. South Africa's richer than every side. Hey,
Luxembourg.
Yeah, but that's just per capita. That is very, very rich.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at the richest country per capita. Yes.
Yeah, it's still a poor country.
Okay.
It's a non-factor. I'm gonna speak like it doesn't matter, right? It's these poor European countries.
It's a rounding error.
We don't even have time to talk about them. Poverty is everywhere. Your question is, how did capitalism, if it's such a great thing, still have so much more people in poverty than communism? You got to go down to a culture and how a culture is being, fixed. Look at South Korea, Singapore, China. These countries were countries that were in poverty. Now, they had to socialize people to say, look, man, we want you to work for a lot less money, right? We understand that you're valued A, but we're going to pay you B, right? Or A minus, this amount, and we're going to try and build the economy. Make sure you have this many children. This is why we're going to, and then they took themselves out of poverty. Remember, 800 million people were taken out of poverty in China, right? Over a period of 50 years, because they had to get into that discipline.
Under a communist government.
Under a communist government. And the thing about communism and socialism, it does help with poverty. It lifts people up to a certain level and they stay there, right? They do stay there, but it comes with oppression. It comes with, you can't walk around and do things as you wish. You cannot do that in China.
Why?
Because it's how
it's against the collective good.
According to their collective
well,
good.
I mean, inequality is against the collective good. So if they want you to be more equal and they want less inequality, it stops the situation that you have.
Let me ask you a question in turn.
Well, hold on. It stops the situation that you have in Los Angeles, where you've got, homeless shelters everywhere, and you've got the biggest stars in Hollywood living side by side.
When last you been in Los Angeles? Okay, let me ask this question before we get...
When last was I in Los Angeles? 2023.
All right, so let's talk about... I even lost my train of thought. Where was I? Have you seen what Chinese people are like here in South Africa?
Yeah.
What are they like?
They're good performers at school. They are recluse. They stick to themselves within their own community. They're very disciplined.
Okay, would you want to live their life?
No.
Why?
because I don't feel like I'm even living my own natural life. I feel like I'm living, under this colonial dispensation, and I'd actually like to live my natural life. I'd like to have all my land and all my water, be able
Let's
to
go
decide
back.
what I want to do
So let's
instead
go
of
back to the
having to work
Chinese
for
people,
money.
right? They're much more successful than black people will ever be. But would you want to?
I
Live
mean,
their
they've
life?
got a 3,000-year civilization which has been uninterrupted.
Would you like to live their life?
No, I would not like to live their life, but I would like
Do you
black
enjoy-
people
do
in
you
general.
enjoy
Wait. I would like black people in general to have the same level of self-determination as Chinese people have.
Say you live in an estate and 90% of them are Chinese? How long do you think you'll survive in that community?
Very long.
Why is that?
Because, I'm just a capable human being.
Look, we need to quit the lying and the facade, right?
Okay.
Chinese people, and look, I've been into their culture quite a bit. Everybody knows that I've got some Chinese broads, right? And
You got a
Chinese-
Blackanese baby.
I got Blackanese kids as well. So the thing is, they're unpleasant to live with.
Mhm.
And this is not trying to speak down to China or Chinese or whatever.
Yeah, very
unpleasant.
rude.
They're cold-hearted. As a matter of fact, I think Europeans are cold-hearted. Asians have no heart,
Mhm.
right? So
They're
Ubuntu-
heartless.
I don't know what's in their system, but they just don't have a heart the same way black people do, right?
It's too many Neanderthal genes.
I do not want to talk about that Neanderthal. I'm staying out of that topic. And the thing is that I wouldn't even see myself, if a war had to start here and they said, hey, the 3 places you got to run to, and one of them is China. I'm leaving China out of that. I'd rather die here. I'd rather die here.
In the motherland.
Right here. You can choose. Hell, I'll go die in Deep Sleuth for what it's worth. There's Deep Sleuth. Which one is it?
I'd rather die in Deep Kloof than Deep Sleuth.
Then go anywhere close to China.
Yeah, I don't know
Because
if
the
they
thing
speak
is-
South African languages in Deep Sleuth anymore. You continue.
Right. My point here is the thing is that the culture of the Chinese or China itself, going into that land, you're going to be restricted in so many ways. Right? If a disease pops out of nowhere, guess what? You're black. It's your fault. Possibly you're the reason why you brought it here.
Unless it came from a lab in Wuhan,
Yeah.
far away from Guangzhou, where most of the black people work.
Yeah, Guangzhou, however they pronounce it, right? To the Canton states. I'm just trying to make you understand that communism or any country with communism, I wouldn't want to go there, and I don't see anybody running to a communist country. I don't see anybody saying, you know what, I'm going to Russia, I'm going to stay there, I'm going to have a better life. Everybody wants to go to the free market capital place. Everybody wants to go to Europe. Everybody wants to go to America.
Is Russia communist?
It
liberalized. The Soviet Union was communist.
That was hyper communism. But I'm saying anything of that, texture and material. Everybody wants to go to a free market.
No one wants to go to Cuba, so to speak.
Nobody wants to go to Cuba. I want the Cuban ladies, right? The reason.
Really? They don't really have fat booties. No.
Okay, I don't know what that
I'm
means.
done with the Schropper stage in my life. I don't want to make myself suffer.
My point here
like when you're walking around in Miami or any of these countries or cities where they've got lots of non-South African women, and you look at the face and then as you walk past, you turn around. There's like a 99% disappointment rate outside of South Africa. At least in South Africa,
that's not true.
Even if she's got a mean
I can
face,
tell-
right?
I can tell.
She could have a
You might
nasty, mean face, right? But as you walk past you look around and you turn around, and then the happiness that just comes over you.
You might not be as well traveled as you think. Rwanda.
I'm not that well traveled.
Yeah, Rwanda. Oh, the ladies there.
No, I don't know. I've got Rwandan girls as well.
I hope the president Kagame can give me, a check or for promoting that country. Damn.
No, Rwandan girls are good, but Tanzanian girls are hotter. Yes, continue.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
No, they're dope. They're dope. I'm going
Tanzanian girls where they got fatter asses.
I'm going to Tanzania.
You know what I mean?
So yeah.
And you can't dunk on a Rwandan girl.
What's dunking?
Like slam dunk.
Oh no! Oh yeah, they're tall. Ooh, my God, they're tall. They just yeah.
I'm sorry, I saw you wearing Lakers. I thought you knew something about the NBA.
Of course, I know something about the NBA.
Okay, but anyway, we're talking about the difference between capitalism and communism.
Yeah, but just closing that topic is that capitalist countries in general are better to go live in, especially if you're a black man.
Okay.
You do not want to be in a socialist state unless, of course, you're there to extract. You get depressed.
What if
when you
you're
go
gay?
to China and you decide to go be a teacher, English teacher there.
What if
There's
you're
a lot of
gay?
that. Ooh, even worse.
So where do you go if you're gay?
Stay in South Africa.
You said it's more of a capitalist country than anything else.
Yeah.
So you're thinking all the capitalist countries are gay countries?
they tend to have higher rates of the spectrum group, the LGBTQ. Yeah.
So if I want to avoid gay people by any means, I should stay in a communist country.
I think I'm not the guy to give you that answer.
No, I'm just saying.
It's not
well,
about being politically correct. It's
based
just
on what
about-
you're saying,
yeah.
would you say that?
Not based on anything I'm saying.
No,
Do
based on
not
what you
attach
said.
these two.
Based on what you said, liberalism, whatever,
Mhm.
socialism, all of those things, right? Which is a better place to stay if you want to avoid gay people?
Likely a country that's got a lot of liberalism, which is likely to have more
To
capitalism.
avoid.
them.
Yeah. If I don't want my son to see men kissing,
Let me just see how.
where
many
should I take my
communist-
son to school?
I don't know. I do not know.
Name
never
one
actually-
country, like one
I do-
country where my son will not see men kissing.
anywhere in Africa.
What about Russia?
I've
where-
not been to Russia.
Russia, public displays of affection between people who are of the same sex or gender, whatever you may call it, are not allowed.
Well, most of Africa is the same thing.
Not even.
You've been to Zambia, so it's illegal being gay in Zambia.
I love it. That's why I'm going
Okay.
again.
Knock yourself out.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, in South Africa, it's nice that there's so many gay people because then there's more women for us straight guys.
All right. I talk about women. That's fine. But I'm going to leave the gay topic alone. And here's why. Because I had this interview with Musha and Diki. I
Mhm.
feel like I still got so much more to be educated on to speak about them, whether it's to speak for them or against them. I just need a little bit more education about them. I tend to want to have an education, like a very well orientated opinion.
So let's talk about women then. Let's not talk about gays. Why is it that in liberal countries, capitalist countries, we see so many women in charge?
That's what liberalism is about.
So are you saying that, capitalist countries are about making women take over control of the politics?
Look, there's obviously this feminist movement and equality and all that kind of rhetoric that's going on to try and equalize the scale by making sure that more women get into places like that.
Or
Are
women
you
can be
asking me-
taxed because they work.
Yeah, there's more tax, more money for the government, and then they do a different type of systematic oppression, and then women get depressed when they get older, and they wish they were just housewives, and you get to that point. And the people are going to think I'm misogynistic for it. I don't care, but that's the system.
I listened to an evil woman talk about her problems on radio today,
Yeah.
on Kai FM to T-Boss. And she said that, she's been married for 10 years. She's got a couple of kids, but she started a job last year after 9 years of being a housewife. And now that she's got a job, she's divorced her husband. And now she wants him to keep the kids. She wants him to stay with the kids. So she wants to get rid of everything that she's done within her married life, her family and everything else. And what I heard was an evil woman. But what I heard parroted on the radio was, well, she must choose her happiness. So in all these liberal countries or capitalist countries, people are being told to choose their happiness. What if their happiness comes at the expense of people's lives and livelihoods?
So you're trying to find flaws in liberalism. Yes, there is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of flaws in liberalism, and one of them is, the feminist movement. Is there anything for women to start working, get a job? No, there's a lot of exceptional women. Of course, we need it. But then what's happening is the fabric of society is breaking. As a matter of fact, I just want to shift the topic. Earlier on today, I was having a discussion with someone, and they were speaking about GBV, and I do not
The
want to
biggest
take
scam
away.
in the world.
I do not want to take away. I'm not going to say that. I want to say some.
You don't
things.
need to put a disclaimer on the things I say. Those are
Oh,
my
yeah,
views.
those
They're not
are your
yours.
views. I mean, we're having conversations.
Yeah,
I'm gonna catch a
yeah.
straight bullet for you. If I'm gonna say some things, I want to own them.
You've
as
caught
well.
many bullets in your comments for me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I owe you some.
Right. So the thing is with GBV, and I want to take South African statistics because I like to deal with statistics. And I said to you, I want to come from an educational standpoint. 7 women die of GBV every day
Wow.
in South Africa.
Every day?
Every single day, 7 women. Now, let me surprise you some more. There are about 70 murders that happen in South Africa. How many are men? 55. Do you know how many men commit suicide? 23 per day. That eclipses gender-based violence. Now, gender-based violence, you know how to drop it? Don't try and get the men that are doing the crime. Try to work on their mental health.
Why?
Because the thing is, mental health is the reasons why it's indirectly
But the
correlated.
bitches are cheating, bro.
Yeah, well, that's between
That's why they
them
get
and-
killed.
That is between them and
And their partners.
yeah, that's between.
But I
them.
mean,
I'm
that's
not-
why women die. It's intimate partner violence is the cause of many of the murdered women. The
With that-
Oscar
with-
Pistorius of this world. You
But
know what I mean?
with that being partially true, right? So is suicides. You know?
Yes, I understand the suicide issue. That's because the emasculation of the men, the death
Yeah.
traps, the gambling, and all of the issues that men face,
Mhm.
and the fact that there's got no social safety net like women have. Women have that social safety net, and they've abused that social safety net to become skanks.
Of
and
course, because
devalued themselves
you know so
to
much
such
so.
an extent, to such an extent that a man sees a woman as a prostitute, and you know how prostitutes get treated by men. They get treated like objects they can kill, like dogs. You know, I went viral.
See, this is what I'm talking about, the mental health. So the thing is here is that when men get into that place, there's obviously something wrong with the mental health. So there should be a program where in South Africa where they deal more with men's mental health more than gender-based violence, because
know
what
what
you're
helps a
doing,
man's mental health?
because gender-based violence is the end of the symptom. So the beginning of the symptom is men not being well taken care
No.
of, and then at the end is the death of a woman.
No.
So if you take care of it in the beginning, yes, absolutely.
No man no man hangs himself with money in the bank.
Oh, there's lots of people. What's that gentleman that I don't know what he lobbied 450 million, white dude, and he shot himself?
Who?
He had 450
Who?
million in the bank. His name is not
Who?
coming to mind.
Who? Brett Kebble.
No, Brett Kebble. It was sometime last year, maybe 2 years ago. Brett Kebble is
The guy
more
who
than a
was
decade
wanted
ago.
for the Steinhoff thing, Marcus Juster.
Was it Marcus?
We don't believe he's dead.
You don't believe he's dead?
I mean, no one believes it. South
I
Africans
know.
don't
I
believe
know a
he's
lot
dead.
of the rich people that killed
We
themselves.
don't believe that Gavin Watson is dead.
Okay, what do you believe?
We believe that he's got enough money to fake his death.
All right. So now we were still talking about the gender-based violence and the mental health. Let's try and close that off.
Well, I was talking about the fact that a lot of the mental health problems are financial with men, right? You put some money in his pocket, right? He's going to have better mental health. You stop taking jobs away from men and giving them to women, you'll have more money with men in their pockets and less men hanging themselves.
Okay. So with that being correct, let me refine it so that it's a little bit more correct than you're saying it. It's not financial, it's purpose. So men don't have as much purpose here in our time, right? They're disempowered and demasculated. You used the word demasculated earlier, so you were correct. They disenfranchised, disempowered all the time. So they're lacking purpose. Now, when a man lacks purpose, what does he become? He either becomes a tyrant or he takes himself out of life. These are the two things. Now we need to re-empower men. When you re-empower men and make sure that there's more stronger men within society, there is more protection to women, right? There's going to be less deaths, less crimes against the women. Now what's happening is that, and I believe the government is the biggest culprit for this. It's like, you know what? Screw men, because the weaker the men we have and the stronger women think they're going to be, we are still in control of these people, because the fall of women is automatically the fall of men. But the fall of men is not...
women run away from responsibility.
Correct.
So
But the
they're
fall
easier
of
to be
men is
controlled.
not automatically the fall of women. So it's not
is.
symmetric. No,
It is.
no, it isn't.
The rise of women is on the shoulders of men.
Yeah, the
therefore, if
rise,
men
but I'm
fall, they
referring-
have no shoulders to stand on, which is what they're standing on right now. So the fall of men is the fall of women. Because if the men fall, then the oil rigs out in the ocean won't be pumping any oil. And I don't care if you drive a Porsche or a Lamborghini, baby girl, it doesn't go without gas.
Look, so that you want women to be STEM workers instead of being nursery school teachers. Look, I want you to
Or less
understand.
humanities, because it seems that they have no humanity. I mean, they kill 400,000 unborn babies each and every single year.
Okay, if I'm understanding the tonality of
African
a understanding the tonality of a conversation and the
So
thread
South
of it,
African women have as many abortions as men commit suicide globally each year.
that is true. And women are protected from that bad image. That I understand. So what I do think is that the government should actually re-socialize, South Africa and women per se, and men, specifically men, more men, so that the society can be balanced again, because
How do
we
we
are
stop
thrown
South
off.
African women from being hoes?
That's a very difficult one.
Kill them?
No. Come
It
on.
doesn't help?
No. That's,
I mean,
it's
a dead bitch can't be a cheating bitch. No reason.
Oh my goodness! I thought it was controversial till this guy came in. No. That's if we okay. Let's try and navigate the conversation, because that's a hell of a question.
Isn't the threat of death like a deterrent to women cheating if they know that my man will kill me if I cheat or if he catches me cheating?
Then you and Julius Malema would be good friends, because he believes that the death of his own people in the process of struggle and revolutionary will be better for the people. He's never said that, but you could see that in his, how he's doing.
The Kenyans are doing that. They're dying for
yeah. So
less taxes.
So the thing is, you would likely say that the death of the Kenyans or the death of anybody is a better good for the people. I don't want to be a part of that conversation, because I want to see how many people I can keep alive and not dead. Right?
Well, if we didn't have this gender-based violence, let's protect the women campaign. And all the women that are killed within intimate relationships or intimate partner violence, whatever the case may be. And if we checked out the stats, how many of them were either cheating or unfaithful to the man, or were taking advantage of his provision and abusing that as well? So how many men were abused for the femicide stats? Then
Yeah,
we'd see
men
that
are more
there's a causal
abused
link
than
to
women. That's
there's
true.
a causal link between the death of these women and the abuse of the men that killed them. Right.
Okay, so
because
that being true,
so if we can address the fact that women are abusive to men,
yes,
and that men respond to abuse with violence, then maybe we can address the abuse of men by women, and that could stem the tide of violence against women and eradicate the cases where men are killing their intimate partners, because there's a mutual respect for the difference in
but then you threw your own
temperament between men and women.
Then you
And
just
then
threw
also
your
at the
own
same time-
conversation off, because the thing is, we don't need more people dead. So what you said is correct. Unfortunately, it is true, as controversial as it says, and probably people are going to be in the comment section, yada, yada. That's okay.
Okay,
Unfortunately,
let me put it to you like this, right? They put car accidents or wreckages on the side of the road, and they say speed kills. And then therefore they're saying this is the result of speeding. Why don't they say cheating kills?
I like that. Now, can you allow me, for the love of goodness, to answer the questions and give you my perspective in full?
No, continue, please.
All right. So in our time now, women out cheat men, right? Why would I say that? I live in Santon.
I
Right?
mean, like, I'd say since the beginning of time, because I mean, it's not
Since
like
the
they-
beginning of
is
time,
it-
I don't
since-
know, but let
because
me
there weren't
just
many
finish.
male prostitutes back in the day. You know what I mean?
So
I'd say
prostitutes,
that the chastity of the woman,
yeah,
right, has always been very gatekept by men. In fact, if
Yes.
women were to be on their own,
and
they'd
that
have
has
no
been a
chastity
good thing,
whatsoever.
although people don't like it because of liberalism. But it's been a good thing that, you know, the chastity of women has been protected or gatekept by men, because that's when morality was still high.
So now, when you take out the father who protects the virginity of his daughter, she becomes a hoe.
Yes, but for the love of goodness, can I make my points so
Sorry
you can
about
hear
that.
them? All right. So why would I say that women out cheat men? I mean, it's been said that 33% or more of women that actually go for DNA is not the dad, right? If I find out that my kids are not my kids, hey man, I don't want nothing to do with them. As cruel as that sounds, it was so that she can take responsibility, and the man that she was sleeping with should do that. Now, 33% is a third, so every third woman is already cheated, right? Another thing is that women have this brilliant ability of tuition. We men don't have that, right? They're able to see if a man is cheating, but we can't tell if they're cheating. Well, not as much as them. If I'm talking about analogous comparison,
I wouldn't say that, but yeah.
Number two
continue. I
is-
think that we are so embarrassed by a woman cheating that we ignore it until we've got hard evidence.
that is
then you
also
snap and kill
true. But I don't know if embarrassed, but we just don't want to, speak
I mean, I've
on
never
things.
had a friend that's come to me and told me that his girlfriend's cheating, but I've told many. of
I've
my
had
friends that
a
their
lot of
girlfriends
my
are cheating.
girlfriends cheat, and they'll say, "Yeah, because you the problem." It's no, because I mean, they tend to have hoe tendencies, and
Well, they're
moving-
hoes and it's encouraged. There's a social safety net for hoes.
that
There's
is
men
true.
marrying women
But you'll
with
have to
4
allow me,
different
because
baby
what's going to
daddies.
happen is that people are going to sample my comment from what you're saying, and then we're going to go unnecessarily viral, and I got to defend myself from that. I live in Santon, right? And
We live in Santon.
you live in
Our
that.
city.
You live in the outskirts of Santon, right?
4 ways Santon, same thing.
Oh yeah,
It's a
true.
Santon city.
True. And the thing is, what I notice is that, and I live in the heart of Santon, and we could say a lot of these women are literally passed around in the literal sense. And there's a big group of women that is passed around through a small group of men. It's down to affordability. And so what's happening now, and this is sad for me
I
because
don't smash all of
this
them.
hurts my feelings so much, is that the production of baddies, it's like people are turning 16, 17, 18, preparing themselves to be baddies. You know,
Yeah, baddies at 13, bro.
as far as that, they're preparing themselves so that when they turn 18, get out of school, they make sure that
They start being baddies at 14.
they might be, but what I'm saying is the ones that I'm seeing is that they prepare themselves to get out of school so that they can try and get their money from that. You know, they start wearing right. They start getting their
weave
clothing from
done.
Temu. What's this Shein
yes,
and what Shein carts?
Oh yes, those communist Chinese companies. Yes.
Yeah,
that are killing the capitalist Amazon and shit. Yes. Continue.
and they're trying to produce that, and more of these baddies, for less than a better word, right? is being produced. And do you know who these women are sleeping with? The same men.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sleeping with Tabo from down the road. No, they don't care about Tabo. Tabo can't even get girls. He's jerking off, and there's more Tabos than there will be Galstons.
Yeah, he's too poor to get AIDS.
He's too poor to get AIDS. Well, he's too poor to get laid. That's what I was gonna say.
Well, it's got aid in it.
You're going to hell.
You're
going to hell.
We're already here.
So my point
The
here
oranges,
is it's
these are the
sad.
flames.
It is
More
sad,
fire.
and they need to give me a plate. You know,
We're burning in more fire. Yeah, continue.
it's sad to see that this is how the production of women that is coming out. Because when growing up, I remember, I wouldn't say worshiping, but pedestalizing the women and be like, wow, this is
Zandine Lapo.
I don't know who that is, but
SABC One continuity presenter.
really,
Okay, this is Claire Mawisa.
right?
Okay, this is Connie Ferguson.
Connie. I
And
mean,
now she's dancing with a double adapter American has-been.
I'm staying out of that conversation because I need her to be on my podcast.
I just said it.
Yeah. So until I ask her questions and she gives me answers, you know, I'm just letting that one be.
Okay, but
My-
let's say Zandine Lapo.
Who's Zandi and Tapo again?
It doesn't matter. Okay, she was an SABC One continuity presenter. She was the hottest girl in South Africa for like...
For a while. Yeah. I mean, look, I travel around the world, so I generally know, I don't know people in concentrated areas, you know? I know women from different parts of the world.
Nomzamo Mbata. She's the star of Shaka 11.
I think Nomzamo is great at what she does. I think she is beautiful in her own regard, but just not my type.
I'm not talking about type.
Yeah.
I'm talking about she's an archetype.
An archetype of beauty.
Mm.
I don't want her to ever think that I'm talking down to her. I just don't see it.
Don't worry. I'm like, you know, she once got mad at me at the BET Awards. I stepped on her dress and it tore.
I think everybody should be mad at you
No,
because you're NOTA. There's reasons why people need to be mad at you.
Because I stepped on her dress and it tore
Mhm.
a bit, like as she was going to the red carpet for
Mhm.
the BET, and she turned around and she saw it was me, and she's like, "Nota, Umona," and it's not like I was jealous of her. It's like, you know, she had like a really big dress. You know what I mean? It's a 25-hour flight from South Africa to Los Angeles. If we're connecting via Emirates, I mean, why are you carrying such a big dress anyway? But it wasn't out of hate. But she is like the star. She's on billboards. She's on African Bank. There's a billboard as you turn to go towards your house by the Strathaven post office. You know, there's a big billboard of...
You keep calling my area Strathaven.
The Strathaven post office. I
Okay.
said by the Strathaven
Okay, my bad.
post office.
My bad, yeah.
That is the Strathaven post
Yeah.
office, right? There's a big African
Yeah,
Bank billboard there. So you could say she is. So these young girls are wanting to become the next Nomzamo. They want to be the celebrated girl. What does the hoeing have to do with getting to Nomzamo level? What has
So firstly,
Nomzamo done for them to
I'll
think that they
say
need to hold their way
I'd
up?
rather see people be a Nomzamo because there's something very girl next door about her. I love that about her. She's not particularly my type, but I prefer a girl next door
She's
type.
from a small town called Durban.
Sure. But my point here is that, you know, I prefer a Nomzamo look any day because it's not a baddie look. There's a lot of class in what she's just not particularly my type. As opposed to what is being bred now. And I don't want to say girls' names so that they hate me for it, right? Because a lot of these women that I'll tell them, hey girl, I see what you're doing. I don't like your look. I don't appreciate it. The level of hoism in what you do, I don't agree with it. We can definitely hang out, but I want you to understand this is where I stand. And I don't want to do that on a podcast because that would be a dick move. And I don't want to pull a dick move like that.
You don't want to be a Bobby.
A Bobby who?
Hersov.
A Robert. Look, I have dick moments. I definitely have dick moments, but I'm definitely different to Rob. We're different types of dicks. Pause. Pause. We're different types of...
I don't know how that comes together.
Yeah. Pause. Yeah.
Good.
Pause. So yeah, it's just, I think to conclude that topic, is just, I am sad that women are breeding themselves into hoism and selling themselves out to the market like that. And it seems more prevalent in South Africa more than all the other African countries.
Why?
And the more
Inequality?
liberalism.
Inequality?
Liberalism, no. I do not
African
believe that
countries,
South Africa
they've
is
got
more...
lots of poor people, and people are mostly equally
There's
poor.
much more poor people in almost every country in Africa than
Yes,
South Africa.
But in South Africa, there is a gigantic disparity between the rich and the poor. We're the most unequal country in the world. If you look at a country like Brazil, if you look at a
it's
country
not
like Brazil,
true.
it's
It is
true
not
by the Gini
true.
coefficient.
It is not
by the
true.
Gini coefficient, it is true.
Stop marketing South Africans. Please stop the stupidity.
Okay, bro,
South Africans,
hold
please
on.
stop the stupidity
How far is
that there's an...
Alexandra from where you live?
It's South Africans, please stop the stupidity of marketing yourselves in a bad way.
But that's fine. But how far is Alexandra from where you live?
It is 2 kilometers from where I live.
Not
but do you
2
know
kilometers?
it's
Less than 2 kilometers.
It's 2 kilometers. I live there, right? So I can
But
tell you how
is that
far.
by the road or Eagle as the crow flies?
Bruh, it's 2 kilometers,
As
right?
the crow flies.
Yeah, straight. 2 kilometers, right? I want you to know something. It's not. Go to any country in Africa. You literally can have a mansion right here and the streets right there. I was in Kenya just now. There's an area called Runda. Runda is a beautiful suburb. You could say Runda is like a West Cliff. Get out of Runda. Boom, shacks everywhere. Literally, it's just a boom gate. All you see is shacks. Everybody talks about South Africa about in that way. Every country like that is there. Go to Mozambique. You can have a house by the beach, and then you just see a little bit of gravel road, and boom, there's all the shacks.
Are we better mathematicians, statisticians? We measure things better?
Yeah, there's one thing about South Africa. It's very proud of itself for finding people who will take the stats together and market themselves in that way. Now, other countries don't have time for that nonsense. They don't have time to try and collect data at all, for that matter.
We don't care about other countries. We're collecting that data because we want to say to the government that they're not delivering on their promises.
It's the government that is bringing that. Stats South Africa is a government. It's a state-owned entity.
But it's
yes, but the thing is that, okay, this is the stupidity of South Africans, and I really want to reiterate that. This is the stupidity of South Africans, is that they keep looking for problems amongst themselves and talk about it so much. The thing, South Africa is bad. It is deteriorating. It is falling apart. But trust me, as bad as it is, I can name, top of my head, 10 countries worse. You choose it.
54.
There you go.
The rest of the African continent.
Yeah. And you including the islands.
No, I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the Comores and the Seychelles. I'm talking about.
So you and I agree, all right? We agree that South Africa, as bad as it is, many countries are worse. It is not.
It's the best in Africa.
Yes, it is the best in Africa, but it's not in terms of its bad side, not the best. It's not as bad as people make. It is bad, but it's not as bad as people make. And there's so many countries that are definitely worse.
Okay. America.
Fact. Worse how?
I mean,
it's the greatest country in the world.
The homelessness crisis is much worse. It's just that they don't market it. They lie about themselves. They give up.
In America, it's marketed.
Israel.
In America, it's marketed.
It's got free healthcare for its people and everything else. But I mean, they bomb kids in Gaza and everything else. They give the best PR of themselves. But actually, if you look at them critically, they're part of the worst. We're very self-critical.
So there you go. You see, all these things that you're saying is that South Africa is dumb enough to market themselves as a bad country to themselves and proudly say it to the world.
But aren't we doing that so that we can fix the problems?
No, you're just saying that because South Africa is a whining country. They love whining.
Okay. So now, because we're susceptible to whining, you can now throw the scam of GBV and make it a bigger problem than the actual problem of black men lives being taken at a rate of 50 a day minimum, right?
There you go. You've got the answers.
I'm just saying. So we're marketing the wrong things. We're studying the wrong stats. We are also lying to ourselves as much as we're telling the truth about some of the bad things that we should be sweeping under the rug or keeping within the family.
You've got the answers.
So
Sway, you got the answers.
So that's your summation of everything.
Well, it's simplified, right? It's a little bit more complex than that, but simplified, it is South Africa is great at taking stats. I've never seen a country like it. And then it takes that stats and poisons itself. Stop it.
Back to Rob Hersov.
Jeez, man, what's your obsession with Rob?
He went to America.
I'm acquainted with Rob. He's not my friend.
It's fine. You said you like him the most out of the 3 white people that.
Yeah, because he's a billionaire. That's
civilized.
He's a billionaire. I want to be a billionaire as well. So.
Did you hear how I said that? I said you civilized them. You sat next to the Neanderthals.
Rob, talk to your boy. Talk to your boy.
Yeah. So anyway, he went out there to go on a smear campaign of South Africa, say all the worst things about South Africa. White people have been saying the worst things about South Africa for so long.
Because white people whine a lot. That's what white people do.
It's fine. They're Karens, right? Now, these Karens are a cause of many of the problems in South Africa, right? Some of the things that they're whining about, they're the cause of those issues, right? How do we stop people like Rob Hersov getting an audience globally with some of the lies that they're spreading about the country, to put it in a negative light, by talking about some of the positive things that South Africa should be celebrating? As someone who's well-traveled,
so instead of trying to stop him,
should be selling to the world, that tells the world what kind of country we are more honestly or authentically.
I think this is your third brilliant question. Instead of
0 stupid questions.
most of them are just statements, and I don't know how to respond to them. But with Rob, I think a few people need to sit in a room with him and say, Rob, you're in a position that many people would never be, right? It happens that you're white, and there's some things that are rhetorics of white people, but you love South Africa. We see it. This is why you're on this podcast run.
Well, I
You
mean,
love
it
it.
enriched him and his family. So yeah, they'd be nothing without.
That's not the point, Nota.
Well, I mean, there's an
It's not the
incentive to
point.
why they love it so much.
It's important that I answer this
There's
because
broke people that love
hopefully,
South Africa without earning a cent from it. But yeah, continue.
yeah. I mean, look, man. Let's just talk about Rob,
Mhm.
and we'll say Rob. In as much as there are some things that are facts that you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, right? But those bits that are not facts or that you've left out that is important to say, we need you to say it because believe it or not, you're the one that's the billionaire. You're the one that can go around doing this. So now if you want some change, you need to stop radicalizing it. You need to stop going through the methods of being a Karen of some sort. Do it in this way. But let's not clip him from doing it. I think I'm encouraging him to continue doing it. But let's just fix some information. Let's market South Africa a little bit correctly, a little bit more correctly, instead of the way that you're doing it.
Okay.
So I'm for Rob going out and doing that.
Okay.
I'm not even saying how. I think the how is fine. It's just there's some information that we got to talk about that.
Let's talk about Ernst Roots. He's an Afrikaner.
It's the same answer to
But he doesn't hold the same contempt for a British guy like Rob as he does for black South Africans, you know.
Rob is not Brit.
Well, what is he?
He's from a Russian descent, like Baltic or Russian. That's these lines.
What? I mean, the what are they called? What were the Tsar family called? The Alexis or whatever?
No
I
idea.
forgot, but they're all cousins.
Mhm.
They're all cousins. They're all Germanic.
Mhm.
Yes, the Russians are the Kaiser of Prussia or
Mhm.
Germany, whatever the case may be. The royal family in
They're not of
Britain.
the same line, but
But
yeah,
yes,
continue.
they're Germanic in
Mhm.
terms of like they're from the same ethnicity,
Mm.
right? Cool. Now the Germanics, the British, they put the Afrikaners in concentration camps, genocided them, killed them with dysentery, paid them reparations and everything else, right?
White on white violence.
But instead of being isolated from the British, who put them in concentration camps, they want to be isolated from the Black Sue's land they invaded, and they want to create a false start within the land that they've invaded. You know, why is it that these people have so much that sets them apart, right?
Between the Brits and the
British
Afrikaners.
and the Afrikaners, and the Afrikaners have so much more in common with the natives and the Africans and the colors, right? But they seem to default to their oppressors instead of relying on the
Again,
protection
when people
of
look the
majority of
same,
South Africans
when
who
people
are
look the
black
same,
and
or
native.
you see something familiar, you down to relate yourself with that. I said this earlier. I'm very likely, and I don't give a damn what people call this, right? I'm likely to relate with a white or any race that is closer to my either economical status or
Eye color.
eye color or or anything. I'm very likely to relate with that person, whether white or black, than I would with any poor white person. I'm not gonna go to Brack Pan and
classism.
start. Of course, it's classism.
Mm.
I'm not gonna go to Brack Pan and start relating with. It's unlikely for that to happen, right? With all the poor Afrikaans
But
people,
why do
it's
rich
unlikely for me to
Afrikaners-
go to Deep Sloot and
Why
start
do
relating with
rich
them.
Afrikaners find poor Afrikaners less repulsive than rich blacks?
Why do rich Afrikaners find?
Find poor Afrikaners more repulsive than rich blacks?
Because it's closeness with the race. That's why.
No, they find the poor Afrikaner
Afrikaans repulsive.
Yes.
Well, I guess it's
They abandon
classism.
them in the Val, they abandon them on the streets, they don't give them, when a white person, a poor Afrikaner is begging for money, white people are the ones that are
I guess
giving
everybody
donations.
hates poor
More black people are
Afrikaners.
donating than
I guess everybody hates poor Afrikaners. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I've never been a poor Afrikaner or a rich Afrikaner before.
isn't the racism the issue?
I think, look, racism is not as big as, again, South Africa doing this again. Racism is a problem, definitely. There's neo-racism, there's all, yes, I know and understand how that works.
Okay.
But it's not as big as you guys make
Okay,
it. It's actually relating. It's like anti-relating.
So why
The only
are
reason
you
why
Ernst
you and
Roots
I, the only
high
reason,
school friends,
Mhm.
you live in Joburg now, both of you?
No, he doesn't live in Johannesburg.
Where does he live? In Pretoria?
Yeah.
In Gauteng. You both are in Gauteng. You've got a home in Pretoria as well.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But you guys are not as close as you were back when in high school. In
We were
fact,
never close. We were in the same class. We never hung out. We never shared like
Why?
juices and tea.
Why?
We just weren't friends. Like I was the popular one. Aaron's wasn't.
Okay.
You see, so it came, and also the friend groups. We weren't in the same friend groups.
Okay.
It's just he wasn't relatable to me. I wasn't relatable to him. There's nothing wrong with that.
Was your school mostly white or black?
It was 70% white.
70% white.
Yeah, and I was the most popular guy in my school.
Okay,
Period.
cool. It's
The
because
same school that
you were
Dale
the
State.
blackest guy as well.
What's the
Probably
blackest?
The most naturally talented and athletic.
Yeah, I was athletic. I was
That
talented,
gives you
and I was
popularity
as
in high
handsome
school.
as I was now than I was back then.
Proficient in the English language in
Uh,
Zanin. which
nobody-
is very rare.
Even the English people who were in that school didn't speak English as good as I did.
I
because-
know. My dad is from Zanin and he speaks perfect Afrikaans.
Well,
Great English. as well.
congratulations.
He speaks both.
Yeah. My point here is that people draw close to people that they relate with.
Mhm.
Like, for example, there's certain things we don't relate with at all, but there's certain things that we do. And because on those matters we agree, and therefore we can have a conversation, be in the same room.
Mhm.
That can happen to white, black, old, young.
Mhm.
Boom.
Why don't you have more white friends?
It's not that I have more white friends.
No, why don't you have more white friends?
All right, so let me tell you my circle that's been there for over 20 years, right? Friends of mine that's been friends for 20 to 25 years, and it's been consistent.
Don't name names. Just
Yeah, I'm
tell
not
me
going to
the
name
races.
names. Out of the 5, 3 are black. And out of these black folks, they've got diasporas, right?
Mhm.
One is born Congolese, but he's grown up South African. So he's South African for what it's worth. The one is
of my
Tonga.
homies, actually.
One
It's
is
actually like
Tonga,
that.
right? One is Tonga, and the other one's
Shout out to Eli Lubala.
shout out to him. And the other one's Mozambican. Now, the ones that are not black, one is an Indian guy, Muslim.
Mhm.
You know, I'm actually
He's
going to see
black,
him
but in South African terms,
in
yes.
South African terms. He's black.
Not
Actually,
African.
he's waiting for me at the house right now because, you know, we're taking long on this podcast. And the other one's white.
Mhm.
So the thing is, the reason why we relate as friends is because of likely economical classes.
Mhm.
None of them come from a dirt poor background.
Mhm.
We're likely to be friends for a long time. This is why when you go to schools, if you go to Michael House or you go to a school in Deep Sloot,
Mhm.
right? These people are likely to be friends because they
Are
grew
there
up
schools in
together.
Deep Sloot? I don't know.
Well, I'm just giving a just a
Mhm.
simple example. Is that people draw
Yeah,
close to
they are. They are.
birds of the same feather flock together.
Actually, like my mom's friend Osma Shadi teaches at a school in Deep Sloot now.
Well, congratulations.
She used to teach in the Val back in the day.
And finalize that, birds of the same feather flock together. So when every time people says white people this, white people that, white people, yeah, birds of the same feather flock together. This is why Muslims stick with each other, because they are Muslims. This is why, you know, white people or black people stick with each other because they are black. This
Well,
is
look
how
at
it works.
Soweto. Soweto was divided in terms of languages, but
Mhm.
people started mixing up
Yeah,
across tribal lines.
right. Now, you see in those instances where people start, I won't say
Naturally,
breeding.
yes,
Yeah,
they
so
started naturally mixing.
it's, there you go.
Okay, why does not happen with black and white people?
They do. They mix all the time.
No.
You- here's a thing that you and Julius Malema have done, right? I don't appreciate this about you and him, is that there was a portion, and I'm old enough to know this, right? There was a time period in South Africa where the racial tension may have always been there, but it was been dormant. And this period of time is between 1996 and 2012. Now, ANC Julius Malema ruffles feathers.
I need to do Zile to test my water first. To taste my water.
So that
I
you don't
know.
die.
Yeah, it's open, it's unsealed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might just die on the
I
show.
need my tutu Zile. Please, I will taste Elamaz tutu.
Now, the thing is, he started
Not my
ruffling
Jacob Zuma,
feathers.
sorry.
He started ruffling feathers, and now the racism part came up. In that period of time, there was ethnic issues. Tonga didn't like Zulu. This person, Xhosa didn't like this group. That was the thing at the time. Now, the ruffling of the feathers that ANC Julius Malema did brought the tension to each other. All right. Now people are grown. You look at the Gen Zs that are probably 21 and below. These guys are losing their virginities to white girls or black,
Well,
vice
I did.
versa. You've mentioned that before. You've lost your virginity. There's no
Well,
real
I
issue.
think it was
But these
taken. I
guys,
was-
let me just finish
hold
the
on.
sentence.
My
These guys are
virginity
starting
was
to
taken
fight
without
racism.
compensation.
These guys are falling to the racism
Appropriation.
bracket because we, people of our age, millennials and older, are telling these young Gen Zs that, hey, it's a racist country. Yo, things are bad. You must stay away from mine. They just want to get along. They're in the same schools with each other. They go to the same private schools and the same public schools with each other. They're growing up together. Now, obviously, they know the difference between white and black, but they're finding a girl or guy that they like.
Did you go to university?
I did.
Which
Tux.
one? Tux.
Well, the one I spent the most time in is Tux.
Okay.
Hmm.
Were black and white students communing together in Tux?
No.
Exactly. So the
Not
thing
as
that
much.
I've observed
Mhm.
as well when I went to Rwanda Afrikaans University, right? Rao, UJ. same thing happened. You know, we're all together with Peter Kriel in class in high school, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Peter Kriel gets to university and then he wants to divide from us. Why do we have so few Peter Kriels amongst white people? Sorry, I wanted to bring us back to the three subjects that I wanted to speak about, the Neanderthals you civilized on your podcast.
You want to talk about why Peter Krill went to go hang out with white people after talking
Why
to
are
you?
there so few Peter Kriels? Like, if what you're saying is true, we all go together.
It's his prerogative.
at the same
Black people, you need to stop this nonsense, right? Allow people to be what they want to be, unless those people are trying to create pernicious society, right? If I decide that I'm going to build a Iranian version of black people, and I say I don't want white people, for as long as I am not committing any crime, man, fuck it. White people shouldn't come.
That's bullshit.
That's some bullshit,
Not
but
in
this is what I
Africa.
want.
I'm sorry.
Look, my next door neighbor is white, right? He's got a big ass mansion, right? And I say, I do not want you here at my house because I'm white. Yeah, he goes, yo, you're racist. I am. I must come to your house. No, screw you. And he's got the right to say the same thing. He can say, I don't want you at my house because you're black. He can.
That's a completely different thing.
Yeah,
Your own
it's
private
now
yard is different from the town.
correct. Now the thing is, those towns are private. That's something that you guys are forgetting, is that it's private. I'm not saying that there should be segregation because there's going to be some idiot that says,
Where do
oh,
we
so
get
you
the
believe in
wealth?
segregation. That's not the point. What I'm saying
Not from
here,
the state.
look, understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
We're not referring to where the money comes from or whatever.
It
I'm
comes
saying
from this
allow people
socialist
their
nationalist
prerogative.
government.
Yes, fine. Allow people their prerogative of what they want, but there's limitations. If it becomes evil, then the state or a community or people must cut it out. Do you understand? It's like, no, nobody can drive past William Nichols Street because you're black. No, screw you. I'll drive wherever I want. This is public property. You understand?
No, you can't drive on William Nicol because it's now Winnie Mandela Drive.
Whatever's clever. But do you get what I'm saying? Is that I'm trying to say
Now
that
black.
it's now black and all the traffic lights go dead now.
No, actually they've been working pretty fine. The G20
That's-
is coming.
That was a bad
Shout
joke.
out to Kenny Kunene.
That was a bad joke.
Yeah.
That was an amazing joke that just went bad.
no, I'm just saying.
Now, my point here is that I think black people are having the wrong topics and you're wasting your goddamn time. I'm saying you because I'm not one of those people. I'm separating myself from stupidity, not
Well,
from
we
blacks.
agree to disagree on that one.
I'm separating myself from stupidity, not black people. I'm black whether I like it or not, or whatever you want to call me, whatever. I'm separating myself from stupidity. And now the thing is, black people need to stop talking about things that is wasting of time and find a way to move forward. Stop finding problems in a solution and start being a part of a solution. And if there's a problem in the solution, we come together, we find a reasonable way to fix it and keep moving on.
How do
And
we
stop
come
talking
together?
about everything.
Do we go to Floyd Shivambu's national, what is it, convention or whatever it is?
Well, firstly, Floyd Shivamba needs to stop blue ticking me too and come to my podcast. We got a lot to talk about.
I
And number one. Number two is that we got to have conversations and act, because there's something about South Africa and particular black people that just love talking and talking and talking and talking and not acting. So you and I, because let's micro it out. You and I, if there's a problem, we solve the problem. I'll tell you how you solve problems for me sometimes. I say, I don't have this type of stuff. You make a call for me and that thing is solved like that. This happened a couple times, Nota. Right? We're not enemies. Just so y'all dumb people think we're enemies. We're not enemies. Right? Nota has solved a lot of my problems and vice versa.
You solved a lot of my problems.
Yeah, it was just boom. Let's just solve the goddamn problems. I know a couple of white
the
people.
The biggest problem I hope you
And
solve,
let me just finish that, is that,
Otherwise I
yeah.
can't pay my bills this month.
Don't look at me. Right? A lot of white people have solved my problems.
Yeah.
A lot of black people have solved my problems. A lot of Indian people have solved my problems. I don't even know which race solved my problem more than the other. The thing is
Blue-eyed
because
boys.
blue-eyed boys, man. Not too many of my friends are blue-eyed. Now, my point here is that we need to come together and work together, period. Forget the race. Just come and do it. Nota, if you were white, if Peter Kriel was, and please, those that, can I advertise my podcast on it?
G2G podcast.
Watch the G2G podcast and
Subscribe,
see how much
like,
comment.
turn your notifications on.
Yeah, and stop being stupid in my comment section.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him and it's like, yo, I want to solve problems with you. I really do. I don't want to just talk to you and try to crush you in conversations. I want to solve a problem with you because you are a young man in South Africa. Hell, you could be an old man in South Africa. I like Peter Kriel like I like Rob Hersov. These are two opposite people. I want to solve problems with them, not try and talk about the problems forever.
Yeah. I know. I can fuck with that. I respect that. You know, thank you for coming through. There's so much more we can talk about, and I'm sure there's so much more we will talk about. But I wanted to have you here on this episode because, you know, you're our first advertiser. So, ladies and gentlemen, this guy has sponsored NOTA Mondays with our first big check. He gave us 170,000 rands, content, cash.
I did that?
Yeah.
Let me check my bank account. Did
yeah.
money go missing?
No money is going missing, but thank you for your support as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a special shout out to our friends at Village Events and our special friend Nala, who's going to be hosting us on the 19th of July at the Dundee July. I prefer the Dundee July. I've boycotted the Durban July.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So definitely, I don't know when this episode is coming out, and instead of calling out the person's name himself,
it's coming out on the 30th of June.
It's coming out 30th of June.
So the 1st of July is tomorrow.
Right. So what's going to
18 days before the event in Dundee.
Yeah. So in Dundee. So let me just break down what Dundee July is. Dundee July is you find a couple of horses in Dundee and they do the racing and everything. Boom. Then you have Dundee July Experience. That's the one I want to talk about. So Dundee July Experience, it's for most of the crowd, it's for free. But then there's VIP sections and VVIP sections. Please book your tickets. Make sure that you come there and have a hell of a good time. The production is out of this world, but for goodness, please come with a thick jacket because that place really does get cold.
At night, yeah.
It does get cold, but the acts that are going to be there live for all these years has been spectacular. It's been spectacular. So
I was there with Java a couple of years ago at the battlefields, which is close to where the Battle of Isandlwana took place.
So
the entire kitchen staff came out of the kitchen when he was eating. And like his wife had to go sit at a small table so that the kitchen staff could eat with him. What a humble guy. Amazing experience out there at the Dundee July.
Me and Java didn't have a good experience at the Dundee July.
Really? Even after that? Okay, well, that was at the hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened at the party.
I guess me and him have some talking to do.
Is he going to be coming through this year, or do you have other?
I haven't booked him. I haven't booked him for this year, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm part of the booking team. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I hope you got some Limpopo artists. You know what I mean?
Are you coming?
I'm not from Limpopo. I'm from Santonway. Well, I was born in
I was trying to see how you gonna work that one out.
Yeah. But you know, there's this other chick who's really hot. I think she's the biggest breakout star of 2025. I mean, she came out on the scene last year, but 2025 is her year. I think she's going to be even bigger than what we saw Makadzi getting to. You know, not to say that Makadzi is underperforming or anything else. It's just that she came out early before the world was ready to hear South African music, and she managed to make a global impact, even winning a BET award. And now that she's put us on that level after standing on the shoulders of giants like Shoma Josie, she's put, you know, South African music, especially music from Limpopo, on such a high pedestal that I only see the likes of Shandesh rising higher and higher and higher and higher.
There's also King Munada.
King Munada. Well,
yeah,
that's another. He's also from back in the day.
Yeah, no, he's in Zanin and he's still making his money in Zanin. And I believe Shame Josie is from Zanin.
Yeah, she's from Elim.
Elim. Yeah, well, it's quite far, but you know, Elim is actually Vembe area. Yeah,
it's close to, yes.
It's a Vembe
they
area.
Had fights about whether they are part of the Vembe district.
Yeah, that and Malamalele
and all those things.
Malamalele and Elim need to decide if they're
in Vuwani. That's the Vuwani,
Yeah, so I know that area pretty well. There's a couple of hospitals that, you know, I've revamped pretty good.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, of course. Most of the province in Limpopo, the hospital's been revamped by me and my family.
Damn.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe should thank you.
Hey, Zimbabwe, please. I don't want to have no beef with nobody.
Yeah. So the BAL happened last week. We were speaking about it with DJ Spoo. You know how to play basketball.
I know how to play basketball, but I know very little about the BAL. I don't even know a single player, except when, you know, the NBA players come down.
NBA season just finished. The Indiana Pacers lost in Game 7 to the
Thunders.
Oakland City Thunder. Right? Okay, so
yeah. So it's OKC, man. I didn't see that coming. I don't think they have another championship. So that one just was a surprise to me that they came out and wanted to see them perform like the way they did. Okay. I thought maybe after they got knocked out, in the earlier, you know, the quarterfinals, I thought maybe.
I hope those guys are paying you.
Which guys?
The ones you're advertising in your hand.
No, they can't see it. They can't see what I'm doing. But if you do, please, if you saw what it was, pay
This
up.
is a 170K episode. You can
Yeah,
advertise whatever
yeah,
you
yeah.
like.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I thought maybe the Timberwolves would, go to the
Mhm.
finals, and another Anthony Edwards didn't make it. So hey, there was a surprise to see who were in the finals and who took it. So yeah,
I was just very disappointed at how this season was marketed. In fact, I think that NBA's marketing has gone on a sharp decline since the
COVID.
bubble. Yeah, since the bubble.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though the dream team of all dream teams played at the Olympics, played well.
Shout
even
out
though
for
they
you
lost
for
to-
saying that instead of saying that the Larry Bird Jordan dream team was the dream team. This was the dream team.
Well, this one, passed all their blood tests.
What was Magic
There was
Johnson
no
on?
bird flu or any
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
disease.
But,
you understand?
yeah.
There was no scratching of the balls at the golf course. No gambling.
Where did you find
debts.
this guy, man?
You
Where you find this
understand?
guy?
Listen, but back to the NBA season that just wrapped up. I think like the NBA has been really terribly marketed this year, and the BAL itself in South Africa, I think that back when it was in Rwanda was better marketed. They had Barack Obama, who's also a shareholder in the media company that runs it in Africa. It was much more well promoted. They even brought J. Cole in to come play a couple of games to give it a little bit more prominence. I mean, Africa's got 1.4 billion blacks. With all that niggerdom, I mean, we're a big talent pool. A bigger talent pool than the 42 million.
Where do you find this guy?
Niggerdom in America. So you'd think that because basketball is now seen as a black sport, or the premier black sport in the United States of America, that they'd find a way to be able to translate that because of the success of them marketing American black culture in Africa. I mean, you're dressed top to toe in some basketball stuff.
I had nothing else to wear. That's why.
Well, I mean, almost every other day you got some basketball jersey to put on. If you're not supporting local brands or brands that are owned by your friends.
I generally
luxury
support
goods.
my friends.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How do we fix sports marketing, especially for the big black sports?
What's big black sports? Like basketball, soccer?
Yeah. I mean, basketball in the American context, you'd expect it to translate a lot better in South Africa because there's so much of American culture has translated, especially American black culture has translated in South Africa. Our girls wear weaves, they're baddies, even Zeus TV came here for their baddies, whatever. How do we get that right? What advice do you have to give
Question
to
is,
the
should we?
BAL team so they don't suffer the same fate of dwindling views and dwindling ratings like the NBA is suffering right now?
I think I gave a clue early on in my conversation about re-socializing South Africa or certain groups, right? So one of the things that didn't transcend into South Africa is the basketball culture. When hip hop was on its rise, when I think, let's say DMX time, Tupac time,
We don't give up. We don't give up. What?
Then in those times, right, basketball was in the culture of South Africans, right? Your Kobe Bryant's, Bow Wow was one of the reasons that basketball was...
Like Mike, yeah.
Yeah. So that culture was in South Africa. Somewhere along the way, it did die. So it needs some sort of re-socializing and putting in some money into saying that, hey, guys, do it. It seems only rich kids now do basketball. And the basketball courts in South Africa are dilapidated. Typical South African way where they just let...
Even in Guyana, dog.
They're
We used
just
to have the best
dilapidated.
courts in Guyana.
Right.
Now
So
they're dilapidated.
Right. So now when you have dilapidated courts, you don't have players, right? You don't have hoops. It's not like soccer where you could just make a little pole and just play on anything. Soccer is a little bit more ubiquitous as a sport to play as opposed to basketball. You need a proper court or you'll mess up your feet. So one of the few things that needs to happen is put some courts everywhere. You start re-socializing people. Put a court in Deep Sloot. Put a court in Deep Sloot. Put a court everywhere. Try to maintain it as much as possible. Let the local people there try and take care of it as much as possible. And boom, you will start having a better marketing.
There's like basketball courts on Joubert Street in CBD.
I do not go to CBD.
Yeah, I'm just saying. They're
So
well maintained. They're well looked after, but they're underutilized.
Correct.
So you think more utilization of the sporting facilities, more public access to sporting facilities
100.
will help market the sport as you
Yeah.
have on the grassroots?
It will
people
first
playing their sport.
culturalize people,
Mhm.
and then marketing becomes easier because understanding what the people of the culture want.
Mhm.
It's that simple.
But now we've got a problem where we've got one of our biggest sports and it's been completely co-opted by the betting companies. You know, you've got your PSL or the Betway Premiership. You've got so many betting companies advertising this degeneracy of betting, you know, online gambling on your phone. Sun City is now a mobile app, you know, instead of having to drive to Marula Sun, you're scrolling
You
through
can
your
actually,
phone.
institutes like Competition Commission, which I believe is under the DTI,
Yeah.
need to start coming in and start regulating these things, because you need people, instead of these big conglomerate companies taking over, you need to find a place where, you know, people can be a part of, normal people could be a part of it. So if it's down to just profits, you're killing and cheapening the sport. You're cheapening the feel of things. So I think culturalizing people and making access for them to be a part of it is a good start.
Okay, that's good. Look, we are running out of time. I have to wrap this up, but I need to get your opinion on the lottery deal, the Sizekaya deal.
I know nothing about it.
They say that Paul Mashatile, our deputy president's sister-in-law or his wife's sister, is part of the deal, and she's taking advantage of the tender. I know that one of the big bidders is also very close to the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, and close with his family. You know, do you think that in our country we'll ever see a time where the politically connected are able to exclude themselves from the business deals, right, that benefit some of the big corporations, so that other smaller players can come in and we could level the playing field and eradicate some of the inequality that we've got in our economy?
No.
Why?
Greed.
Greed. Isn't
Greed.
that part of capitalism?
No. Capitalism is excuse me. Greed is everywhere. Capitalism does breed more greed than, say, socialism and the others. That is true. But the thing is, greed. And politicians get into politics so they can make money. Politics has changed where you serve the people. Is that get in there, make your money, secure yourself, get some more money, secure yourself some more. I need some more, get in. So the way of politics is that way. And that's the thing. It's never going to happen until people put those politicians into account. It's not a political party problem. You name all of them, they're all a problem. We need to get to a place where we're like, hey, that's going to stop right now. Not going to yippy yappy and chop it. If you don't, we'll make sure it happens. Because the people run the country. The people are the country. There's just, we put the people in this place to regulate and run us. Don't steal from us. That's it.
All right, cool. So we're going to wrap it up on that note. I guess we're both on the same page when it comes to gambling and gambling advertising. You know, I've seen billboards everywhere saying you can bet for as little as R1. I would encourage you to not do that, to spend your money on other more productive things.
Invest in podcasts. You know, like make sure that you put your money in places where people and platforms like this can grow, so conversations can happen instead of putting your money in. Let me not say before the betting companies don't want to do none with me.
Well, I mean, you can take the betting companies. I don't want any betting advertisers. I'm not going to sell my brothers and sisters down the river. It's already bad enough that I've had this cane sugar in here, which I try to avoid but at all costs, you know. But thank you for having this conversation as well. Thank you for coming through to promote this very important event that you guys are a part of. I think it's the 15 years of the Dundee experience that you'll be celebrating.
Is it 15? Isn't it like 12? I'm not sure, but it's been over a decade.
It's been over a decade, right? And I will be there, you know, so catch me out in Dundee making hay. Right?
Catch him in Dundee, July, in the backstage where he wants to be.
I got one question.
Yeah.
I bet you up a
What? What's the question? I missed it. What did he say?